That's why we have to think as black people. Stop singing and dancing and start thinking.
Wow.
Thinking and reading. I say reading is more important than watching TV. And not getting addicted to looking at those small iPhone screens. See, where you were getting accustomed to looking there in a narrow space as opposed to paying attention broadly to what is happening around you. See, and people are getting addicted.
Now imagine this. You wake up, you put on your glasses because Silicon Valley decided you needed camera on your face. You clip on a recorder, you strap on a bracelet, and congratulations, you're not a person anymore, you're a data stream with legs. Welcome to the future big tech is building for you, whether you ask for it or not. Unlike smartphones, these devices don't need to come out of a pocket. They're already watching. They're invisible. Technology, though, has one very visible consequence. It makes consent disappear. And that's exactly where this AI race is heading, not towards bigger screens, but towards smaller devices. Meta is already selling millions of AI-powered smart glasses and cameras and microphones built inside. Samsung is preparing to launch its own smart glasses. Amazon has bought Bee. It's a startup making AI bracelets that records conversations throughout the day. OpenAI says keyboards and mouse are merely a temporary phase. According to this AI giant, clicking and typing were never truly what humans wanted. Translation? Soon, your life itself could become the user interface, not the keyboard, not the screen, just you. Your conversations become prompts, your surroundings become data, your daily life becomes the operating system. Talk about living online. Soon, online might start living inside you. Now, of course, Silicon Valley isn't calling this surveillance. Of course they won't. They're calling it context. Amazon's device chief says AI assistants work better. They know your entire day. On paper, that sounds useful. If your AI knows you're running late, it can reschedule meetings. If it hears you discussing dinner plans, it can book a restaurant. If it notices your stress, it might suggest taking a break. Almost like a magic trick. But every magic trick comes with a catch. And this one is filled with your personal data. Think about it for a second. Your phone only knows what you choose to do on it. These variables, though, know what you say, who you argue with, how your boss speaks to you, how your children sound when they're sick, what you whisper, even what you never intended to share. This isn't just data collection, it's behavioral archaeology. AI isn't just reading your search history anymore, it's reading your life. Now let's be honest. Most of us surrendered our privacy somewhere between accept all cookies and I have read the privacy policy. We just didn't realize we were signing a lifetime subscription. Women have already reported cases where Meta's AI glasses were allegedly used to secretly record them before clips appeared on social media. Meta says the glasses are recording indicator lights. But who even spends an entire conversation staring at someone else's wrist or glasses, looking for a tiny blinking light? And then there's the bigger question. Why is big tech suddenly so obsessed with replacing the smartphone? Simple. Because whoever owns the next computing platform owns the future. Now, the smartphone didn't become indispensable because it made calls. It became the remote control of modern life. Now the tech giants want something even more valuable. Not a device you pick up, a device you never take off. Because a gadget in your pocket collects information. A gadget on your body collects behavior. And behavior is worth far more than clicks. Data was yesterday's oil. Context is tomorrow's gold mine. Mark Zuckerberg believes AI glasses can give people a cognitive advantage, perhaps. But they also give companies an informational advantage. If your assistant knows you better than your spouse, if your variable predicts your decisions before you make them, if algorithms start anticipating your emotions, who is really making those choices? You? Or the machine gently nudging you in one direction? The line between assistance and influence becomes dangerously thin. Today's recommendation can become tomorrow's manipulation. So this is why this debate isn't really about gadgets, it's about power. Who gets to observe whom? Who owns memory? Who controls whom? The post-smartphone era may indeed be arriving. And when that day comes, the device on your body will remember what you forgot, notice what you missed, and decide what you need before you do. Is that heaven or hell? You decide.
And you keep saying that I'm free. And you keep saying that I'm free. And you keep saying that I'm free. It's you, my champion. I ain't got no parts to this cage. If I want to stay, wanna build me a land house. Keep them satellites out. Direct TV. Am I watching it or is they watching me? Man, I don't really know. But I feel like I'm being scoped, y'all. Watch, y'all. Something ain't right. Something ain't right.
Neighbors flock together to complain in Orange County. Things got a little heated at a recent Costa Mesa City Hall meeting. The subject? So-called flock cameras, which the police department uses in enforcement. In a 6-1 decision, council members voted to keep dozens of those cameras in place, but are now directing staff to renegotiate the city's contract with the company called Flock. The decision follows growing opposition in quite a few cities across the area and country over privacy concerns. Our OC Oracle and LA Times columnist Gustavo Arellano is here. Hey, Gustavo.
Hola, Steve.
First of all, explain how law enforcement actually use the Flock cameras.
The ostensible reason to use these cameras is to target any suspicious activity and criminal activity, to be specific. And so what law enforcement who uses this says is that allows them to track anyone who has committed a crime. They see where the car comes into the city and out of the city. And so every city that has this contract, they're also allowed to upload what they get onto a regional or even national database, depending on who's using this, so cities can, police departments can exchange this information like they always historically have when it comes to any criminal that might be, any suspected criminal that might be in their city limits.
But some residents are concerned about things, especially when it comes to privacy. Explain some of that.
I mean, I see this now all the time. You're at a stop sign or a red light, and all of a sudden you look up and there's a camera looking at you. And look, even if you are perfectly fine above the law and don't do anything wrong, are you really comfortable with the idea of all these cameras tracking you in most big cities across at least Southern California right now? And so, yeah, it makes total sense that residents do not want this all-seeing eye of Sauron in their daily lives when all you're doing is trying to drive down the street to get some tomatoes or something.
And there's also the case of this police officer in Costa Mesa who was found to have used Flock cameras to actually stalk people, right, including his wife and a woman he'd been seeing outside of his marriage. I mean, what happened in that case, and how does that tie into people's fears?
Well, that's why in Costa Mesa specifically, a lot of residents showed up to a recent city council meeting demanding that the city council end its contract with Flock, or at least not use this anymore, because you have the case of a police officer, former police officer in Costa Mesa, unlawfully using Flock data to essentially, for his own personal life. And he ended up pleading guilty to 3 misdemeanors. So this is not allegedly or anything. Like, he was not supposed to do it. And he even used it after he was no longer a police officer.
And like you said, a lot of people showed up at the council meeting. Let's hear from someone who lives in Costa Mesa who actually spoke out against Flock.
I am absolutely offended that you have concentrated cameras in the Hispanic areas. You have the responsibility for our community to absolutely stop what's happening. I don't trust Flock. I trust the police department more than I trust the accessibility that Flock has with this information.
That was somebody who took the microphone, but you just heard her say concentrated cameras in the Hispanic areas. Is this an immigration concern as well?
Oh, huge. Anything that's tracking anything nowadays, especially if you are someone who has undocumented people in your life or just, support the rights of them, you're going to be very concerned. And it didn't help at all that Flock for months and months said, oh, we have no connection with ICE or Border Patrol or any part of that alphabet soup of immigration enforcement. And then they said, oh, actually, we did have a trial run, but no, we're not going to use it anymore. So, yeah, especially in Costa Mesa, which has had a long history of people fighting over the issue of undocumented immigrants. This is going to be a huge issue right now.
Well, as we mentioned, the city voted 6-1, council members, to renew the contract, keep Flock, right? But also, in less than a year's time, go back when the contract is up and look at new terms, a renegotiation, shall we say?
Yeah, it was weird because they said, the police department said, we like what Flock is doing for us. It has helped. But meanwhile, you had all these residents opposed, and the only council person to vote against it was Arliss Reynolds, who basically said, hey, we're not listening to what our residents are saying. They're saying that we should suspend our contract. I mean, you stay in that contract but just not use it anymore. But other council members said, no, there is a benefit to this, but when it comes to April, when the contract is up, let's just put more guardrails against it to basically acknowledge all the concerns that our residents have. So it was one of those things where no one left the council meeting happy about what ended up happening.
LA Times columnist Gustavo Arellano on the Flock beat today. Gustavo, thanks.
Gracias.
When we first met Kathy, she was a hurricane evacuee, surprised to find herself in Utah.
Utah? I was really afraid there because I noticed I didn't see any black people. But I said, no, they probably come in, they'll come out when it's all over. Maybe they're thinking everybody's like me. They don't want to get involved with this action, but they'll come out. When I noticed they wasn't coming out, I went to getting frightened living there by myself. When a lady told me it's 1% black in Utah, in Pleasant Grove, Utah, I said, why do people send me here? There I am, can't sleep, thinking somebody's going to come and just lynch us.
Utah celebrated its biggest state holiday this weekend, Pioneer Day. It marks the 1847 arrival of Latter-day Saint pioneers, commonly called Mormons, in the Salt Lake Valley. Every year, there are fireworks and parades. This year, one celebration also included a rare acknowledgement of some darker pioneer history. Ciara Hewlett with member station KUER reports from Provo.
Pioneer Day is akin to the 4th of July for Utah. Pioneers coming here kicked off the birth of the state and gave the persecuted Latter-day Saints a homeland. Even though it's a sweaty summer night, hundreds of Utahns are celebrating downtown. They start a conga line as the violins sing, and a line dance breaks out. But one thing that's not usually talked about on this holiday is how the settlers secured their safe haven by driving Native people out. Many Utahns have never heard of a tragic event that happened near here in 1850, known as the Provo River Massacre. In February, members of the Timpanogos Nation gathered for a memorial walk to teach people what happened to their ancestors.
Their blood's in the throne, and their spirit's still around here.
Tribal Council member Perry Murdoch sang to call them. After the pioneers arrived, tensions were high between the two groups. Historian D. Robert Carter.
And then there was a murder that really sort of tipped things off.
Settlers accused a Native man of stealing a shirt. Carter says they killed him over it. Conflict escalated, and the pioneers asked their prophet and elected governor what to do.
Brigham Young said, I say, go and kill them.
The area's militia was given extermination orders for any Timpanogos people who didn't surrender. That led to a battle. Carter says the Timpanogos killed one settler and the militia killed at least 40 Native people. The tribal nation says it may actually be more than 100.
Our people are still living in fear, a lot of them.
Mary Murdoch-Meyer is chief executive of the Timpanogos Nation.
The extermination order is still in effect, and it's still being utilized in the aspect we're still being ignored. We've been exterminated from public view.
She says the roughly 1,000 Timpanogos people want the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints or Utah's governor to publicly apologize and rescind the extermination orders.
They would just make our people be more at peace, maybe have some faith in this state, maybe children not growing up in fear anymore.
The governor's office didn't respond to NPR's interview requests, and the church declined to comment by deadline. But Utah's House Minority Leader says she'll start conversations about a rescindment. And at the Pioneer Day celebration in Provo, Mayor Marsha Judkins took the unusual step of opening the concert with an acknowledgement of the hidden history.
And so as we gather tonight, we do so with gratitude for the opportunity to learn from one another and to recognize the many stories and histories that have shaped Provo and Utah Valley.
Then she invited Chief Meyer to the stage.
Our history is not pretty. It's very, very sad.
Sam Anderson, a recent Brigham Young University graduate, says this was the first time he's heard about the extermination order.
No, yeah, I was really, really shocked, honestly.
He said it was hard to hear as a Latter-day Saint, but he thinks it was an appropriate recognition on Pioneer Day.
I don't have any problem, obviously, with like us celebrating our pioneer ancestors and what they did and the sacrifices they made, but I think like the most beneficial history for us to celebrate is one that's also holistic and includes all of the voices and stories that happened.
Anderson hopes Utah can take the best from history and leave the worst behind by rescinding the order. For NPR News, I'm Ciara Hewitt in Provo, Utah.
Hitler had the supreme fascist state. And what was he worried about in Europe and in Germany? He was worried about white genetic annihilation. What is everybody in Europe worried about now? White genetic annihilation. All these people from Syria coming up in here.
In Berlin, a day of celebration turned into a day of terror. On Saturday, as thousands gathered in the capital for one of Europe's largest pride celebrations, a man drove a van into the crowd. Authorities say he then got out of the vehicle and attacked people with a machete. One woman was killed, 29 others were injured. After a citywide manhunt, on Sunday, German police tracked down the suspect. They say he charged at officers with a bladed weapon. Police opened fire, killing him. The German authorities are calling it an Islamist terrorist attack. And Germany's far-right anti-immigration party, Alternative for Germany, or AfD, has already seized on this attack, calling it another sign of Germany's security and migration failures. Now, this attack comes just weeks before key elections and is expected to reignite one of Europe's most divisive political debates: migration, Islamist extremism, and whether Europe's security policies are keeping pace with the threats it faces. Now, we'll come to the bigger questions in a moment, but first, here's what we know so far. On Monday, German authorities faced some tough questions. After all, the attacker, identified as 21-year-old Abdul Bolau, was already known to German authorities. Prosecutors say the suspect had a long criminal history. He had convictions for assault, robbery, extortion. Authorities say he later became radicalized. They allege he traveled to Lebanon in an attempt to join the Islamic State in Syria. He was arrested there, served time in prison, and was eventually sent back to Germany. In May this year, he was convicted of preparing what prosecutors called a serious act of violence. Yet, he wasn't in prison. His sentence was suspended, partly because he had already spent time in custody, partly because he admitted his crimes, and partly because he claimed he had abandoned extremist ideology. He was also attending de-radicalization counseling. According to German media, his next appointment was due on Monday. This attack happened on Saturday. So how did someone already on the state's radar still manage to carry out such an attack? That question alone has triggered outrage. In a press conference after this attack, German Chancellor Friedrich Merz criticized his country's security services for allowing the attacker near the event.
In any case, I simply can't understand that I can locate my phone anywhere in the world, and even use my phone myself to find out where, for example, my iPad is. But the security authorities in Germany supposedly can't, or it's technically impossible for them, to determine at any time where people posing such a level of threat are located. These are questions we need to resolve.
Mark Enrichman, lawmaker from the Chancellor's CDU party, said that tougher measures were necessary in such cases.
The freedoms of extremists and Islamists must not be given undue value, especially when people's lives are at risk.
Now, a day after the deadly attack, a vigil was held on Sunday afternoon in which hundreds of people packed the site of the attack with rainbow flags and flowers. Now, Saturday's attack, it's revived memories of a string of similar incidents which have shaken Germany in recent years. The inflamed debate on immigration is because of several of the perpetrators who've been from outside Germany. The deadliest attack in recent years was a truck rampage at a Berlin Christmas market. In December 2016, by a Tunisian man with jihadist motives that killed 13 people. In 2024, a Saudi psychiatrist and anti-Islam activist killed 6 people and wounded more than 300 in a car ramming at a busy Christmas market. And the run-up to general election last year also saw a spate of attacks in public places, including by attackers with Islamist motives. But Saturday's attack marked the first time Berlin's LGBTQ+ community has been targeted in such a way, in a city long known for its openness. The LGBTQ+ community said that they hoped the attack wouldn't be exploited by the anti-immigration far right ahead of key regional elections in September.
I simply want that our fears and concerns are taken seriously. For years, the queer community, and trans people as well, have only ever been used when it's convenient to stir up hatred against foreigners, migrants, Islam, or whatever else. I want people to actually listen to us, not just when we're in the spotlight because of a terrorist attack, but also when we're just being loud and speaking our minds.
Now, the AFD quickly denounced what it called a complete failure of the government's security policies following this attack.
The AFD has been warning for years that Islamism is and remains the greatest security threat to our country. We finally need a real shift in migration policy because many Islamist attacks are linked to immigration and naturalization policy.
Already, the anti-immigration AFD is hoping for record results in the September polls. But this is bigger than Berlin. For many years, European governments have built their counter-terrorism strategy around the belief that people can change, that extremists can be rehabilitated, that with the right support they can rejoin society. They've invested heavily in de-radicalization programs, but time and again, after the 2015 Paris attacks, after the 2016 Brussels bombings, after the 2016 Berlin Christmas market attack, after the 2020 Vienna shooting, and after a series of knife attacks and car rammings in Germany over the past 2 years, Europe has asked the same thing. Are these systems working? How do you keep people safe without giving up the freedoms they value? Germany is home to more than 21 million people with an immigration background. That is around 26% of its entire population. Therefore, it's safe to say that the actions of a few should not define an entire community. The overwhelming majority live peacefully and have no links to extremism. German authorities also warn that the country faces threats from both Islamist and far-right extremism. In fact, In 2025, Germany recorded a record 85,000 plus politically motivated crimes. Far-right offences accounted for nearly half of them. Official data shows neo-Nazis and other right-wing extremists were responsible for more than 42,500 of the offences, including thousands of xenophobic hate crimes and attacks targeting religious communities, including both Muslims and Jews. The political debate is only going to get more intense now. Will this latest attack give more momentum to those demanding tougher migration policies, or will it deepen the politics of hate that is already dividing Europe?
There is new evidence that federal immigration agents in Los Angeles used derogatory and racial slurs to describe Latinos who they were targeting in recent immigration raids. The slurs are heard in body cam footage that is now part of a federal lawsuit accusing ICE and Border Patrol agents of racial profiling as they search for immigrants to detain. NPR's Adrian Florido joins us now, and a note that we will hear some of those slurs in this segment. Hi, Adrian.
Hi, Alana.
So, these body cam videos from immigration agents, tell us what they show.
Well, the videos are from last year, and they show the agents carrying out the aggressive immigration raids that have become a hallmark of President Trump's deportation campaign. But these videos also capture agents' conversations inside their vehicles as they're driving around LA looking for people to arrest. And you hear them using slurs to talk about the people they're targeting.
Jesus. I bet they did get quite a few.
In this video, two agents are talking about an operation that has just finished.
I checked one guy's ID.
Did you?
Yeah.
There was a guy, I'm pretty sure he's wet. He was just sitting in that minivan.
He says there was a guy, I'm pretty sure he was wet, just sitting in that minivan. And wet, Juana, is short for wetback, a racial slur for immigrants from Mexico. And listen to how these agents in a different video talk about someone they've just spotted in a car.
There's one right there. Very great ball. Yeah, real tracks up. It looked like a tonk in the driver's seat.
Probably was.
Adrian, did I hear him there say tonk?
Yeah, tonk is a term that immigration agents have been known to use for migrants. It refers to the sound of an agent's flashlight when it hits a migrant's head. In the past, Border Patrol supervisors have forbidden agents from using this term because it's derogatory. But tonk shows up several times in these body cam videos. In this video, two agents are speaking in a mix of Spanish and English, and they're celebrating having just gotten, quote, a tonk.
Yeah, I got it. Don't thank me. I did. How do you take the camera? How do you take the camera?
The man arrested in that operation was later released. He was a U.S. citizen.
And how have these videos come to light?
Well, a federal judge in Los Angeles ordered the government to turn agent body cam video and text messages over to the ACLU as part of its lawsuit against ICE and Border Patrol. Last summer, the ACLU and other groups sued, alleging that agents are racially profiling, stopping and arresting people just because they look Latino. I spoke with Myra Joaquin, one of the ACLU's attorneys in this case.
We now know the only evidence that those agents used to stop an individual was to racially profile and to identify people on the street who appear to look Latino and working class.
The government has argued in court that its agents decide who to stop based on many factors and say they don't racially profile. But Joaquin says these videos and other evidence that they've submitted in this case show that agents really are just choosing people who look Latino.
Now, Adrian, if I recall correctly, this case did come before the Supreme Court last year, and the court's conservative majority sided with the Trump administration. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. The High Court ruling lifted some temporary restrictions that the LA judge had placed on ICE and Border Patrol. Justice Brett Kavanaugh wrote that agents are allowed to use race as one among other factors. That Supreme Court ruling, though, did not stop this lawsuit from moving forward, and the ACLU says these videos strengthen their case that race is the main factor agents are using, and they want the judge in LA to order agents to stop using race and to document why they are stopping people.
And last thing, Adrian, how has the Trump administration responded to this new evidence?
The The Department of Homeland Security sent me a very short statement that said in part, quote, "Our agents are focused on protecting the American people, not entertaining performative outrage."
NPR's Adrian Florido, thank you.
Thank you.
What's this thing with Trump and you? It's like me and Letterman. What has he got against you here? I don't get it.
This all dates back to when we were growing up together in Kenya.
Yeah.
A decade ago, Daniel Erving made Africa proud on the world stage. He became the first Kenyan to play in the NFL, breaking into one of America's biggest sporting stages. But today, his story has taken a stunning turn. The former Indianapolis Colts linebacker has been deported from the United States. Daniel Erving made history in 2013 when he became the first Kenyan to play in the National Football League. But more than a decade later, he is returning home under a deportation order. Now, U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement says Erving overstayed his visa after his NFL career ended. The agency also cited a series of arrests in Indiana. While several of Erving's felony charges were later dismissed, he was again convicted in 2020 of misdemeanor criminal mischief.
This dangerous individual was clearly a threat to the community, which is now safer since he's been removed. Those who violate immigration law are held equally accountable, including former professional athletes.
That is the position of U.S. immigration authorities. But court documents and medical reports reveal a much more complex story, one that goes beyond immigration law. Court records and medical evaluations raise serious questions about Erving's mental health. Doctors reportedly identified acute psychosis and concerns over traumatic brain injury. A social worker who treated him also raised the possibility of chronic traumatic encephalopathy, which is also known as CTE. Now, this is a condition linked to repeated head trauma in contact sports like rugby and American football. Erving's case has become a painful example of a bigger debate, because this was not simply a delinquent overstaying a visa. It was about a man suffering from an untreated brain trauma sustained on the field of play. And it exposes a brutal paradox for the African diaspora. For decades, Africa has long exported some of the world's greatest athletes, from Kenyan runners to Nigerian footballers to South African rugby players. The continent produces the talent, the world profits from it. But when the career ends, too many athletes are left to face the consequences alone, without any safety net. For the United States, Erving's case is a matter of immigration enforcement. ICE says that he violated immigration law and was removed after a Department of Justice immigration judge issued a final removal order. But for Kenya, this is more than an immigration case. Erving was a national sports pioneer, a man who put Kenya's name on one of the world's biggest sporting stages. Now, the country that celebrated his breakthrough is receiving him back under completely different circumstances. And his deportation comes as Washington expands its migration enforcement strategy across Africa. The Trump administration has used diplomatic pressure, including visa restrictions, to push some African governments to accept citizens facing removal orders. Washington has also pursued third country deportation arrangements with several African states. Daniel Erving made history for Africa, but his story ended far from the stadium. It ended inside an immigration system. And it is a reminder that while Africa's talent can travel the world, the protection for that talent, too, often does not.
I'm in a New York state of mind. New York State. I'm in a New York state of mind.
Every Every summer, New York City's specialized high schools release their admissions numbers. And every summer, the diversity at Stuyvesant High School becomes a flashpoint. This year is no different. Only 3 black students were admitted to Stuyvesant's incoming 9th grade class of 777 students. That's the lowest number since the city started tracking this data back in 2014. It's a drop from 8 last year and 10 the year before that. Citywide, only 140 black students got into any of the 8 specialized high schools out of tens of thousands who took the entrance exam. Mayor Zoran Mondani, himself a graduate of Bronx Science, has called the numbers jarring, but he said he won't push to change the test that determines who gets in. WNYC and Gothamist reporter Jessica Gould has been covering the story for years. She's here to help us understand these numbers a little bit better. Hey, Jess.
Hey.
All right, so only 3 black students out of 777. That is a really small number, but I wonder if you're even surprised by that. You've covered this every year.
Honestly, I wasn't that surprised. It's stunning, but not surprising. You know, we see this year after year. At Stuyvesant, as you mentioned, it's been 8, 10, 7. It goes up a little, goes down a little, and it often ignites this firestorm of debate. You know, there are the calls to overhaul admissions to the specialized high schools, but then no major changes end up being made. So it's a familiar story, but the number is especially low this year.
Yeah, and numbers are what we're going to dig into to follow this one. I'm wondering, can you paint this ugly picture for us? Can you describe and break down the demographics that we're talking about here?
Sure. So at Stuyvesant, as you said, of 777 seats for incoming 9th graders, 68% of those seats went to Asian students. But Asian students only make up 19% of the school system. Now, compare that to 2% of Latino students who got into STY as part of this most recent admissions round, even though they make up 42% of public school students. The percentage of black students that we talked about who got offers to Stuyvesant is way less than 1%. And they make up 19% of the school system, and 17% of offers went to white kids, who make up 16% of the school system.
Man, when you paint this picture, it doesn't look that great, for Stuyvesant High School at least. But is this something that is happening at other specialized high schools?
Yeah, I mean, this trend is across the specialized high schools, though it's particularly acute at Stuyvesant. Okay. All the specialized high schools admit relatively few black and Latino students compared to their numbers in the school system at large. So it's a demographic trend that's been going on for years.
Why is that even happening?
Many critics blame the SHSAT.
It's always a test.
Yeah, it's the standardized test that decides whether you get into these schools. Your score also decides which of the 8 specialized schools you get into. It's mostly a multiple choice test. It's got a section on math and reading. It's 3 hours. And last fall, it was the first year that it was totally digital, so on computers.
Okay.
Now, critics of the test say using grades or class rank would be a fair way to determine admission. They say that the test seems to discriminate against black and Latino students. But there are other factors at play beyond the test itself. Fewer black and Latino students are taking the test to get into these schools. Some families don't even know about the test, and others aren't eager to be part of such a small minority once they get to the school.
I could understand that. But I'm wondering, why does one single test carry so much weight when it comes to determining who gets into these schools in the first place?
Well, it's actually part of the law. The test is in state law. It's a state law requirement for admission to the schools. Now, the test defenders say it's actually an objective measure compared to more subjective measures like essays or grades or recommendations. And some say it's a really good predictor of who will succeed at the school. But the main reason that it's still in place after all these years is because all of the efforts to change it have failed.
And after these kids take this test, there's another way students can get into a specialized school through the Discovery program. And that's a program that was designed to improve diversity at specialized schools. But Jess, you recently reported that data shows diversity in that program itself is actually lacking. Can you explain that a bit more?
Sure. So the Discovery program allows kids who didn't meet the cutoff for getting into these schools outright, but still scored very high, a chance to take a summer program where they take some courses, often taught by faculty from the specialized schools at the specialized schools. And then if they do well enough, they can be admitted to the school in the fall. The de Blasio administration actually expanded this program so that more students would be admitted that way. And they also made a requirement that the students who got into Discovery either had a low-income family background or went to a school that was high needs. So that was meant to kind of diversify the pool of kids getting in. But what we found from the most recent data is that while some more Black and Latino students do get in that way, it does increase the numbers a smidge. It really doesn't change the overall demographics of the specialized schools that much.
Okay, so by law, a student has to take a test to get into these specialized high schools. When does preparation for that test begin?
So for some students, it begins when they're years younger than when they take the test. For some students, it begins years before. They spend their summers or weekends in prep classes.
That's no fun.
And, you know, there's this whole cottage industry around it. So you can have classes that cost up to $5,000 for a summer boot camp that goes into the fall right before you take the test. But there are also, you know, much lower cost online resources, you know, from $30 a month or so. And then there are free test prep programs that the city runs, and also some foundations to try to diversify the pool of students more.
Okay. Earlier I mentioned that Mayor Mamdani has no plans to change the exam or get rid of it. Of course, we know now it's a state law. But he says that he is willing to invest more resources. What is he talking about there?
Yeah, he said earlier in his career that he was interested in shifting the admissions policies at these schools, that he supported that. Then during the campaign trail, he said he would leave the test as it is. So that was a change in his position. He hasn't said exactly what his plans are to improve education in order to address these disparities, but some of it includes investments in, you know, pre-K all the way up through middle school to make those schools stronger, to improve education and sort of lift all boats so more children are in a position to apply for these schools to take the test and get in.
Why is changing how these specialized schools admit students, why is it so controversial?
Well, you know, efforts to get rid of the test have created a lot of pushback, particularly in communities and among families who have been able to get in. These schools are seen as a real pathway to success, whether it's, you know, an Ivy League school for college or career. These are networks that you become part of. The education is very rigorous. And when former Mayor de Blasio tried to get rid of the test years ago, there was just a groundswell of opposition. A lot of the opposition came from the Asian community, where many families felt personally attacked, that he was trying to take away a pathway that they had to get their kids into better schools and a higher education. Some talked about being first-generation immigrants and that their kids were working really hard to prepare and that they merited getting in, and they fought back hard, as did some alumni like the makeup billionaire Ronald Lauder, who bankrolled some ads and pushed in Albany against any efforts to dismantle the test. So there really was a lot of pushback, both from families on the ground and some big-pocketed individuals, to try to fight back against these changes.
So for families whose kids go to specialized schools or who want their kids to go to specialized schools, have you talked to any of them? What do they have to say?
Yeah, as you can imagine, the parents of kids who got in and who are getting in, they say that the test is a good measure of your ability to succeed at the school, and that it is objective and fairer than other measures. They also say that the specialized schools are diverse. It's just diverse in a different way than we might have been talking about it before.
Yeah, I'm thinking how?
Well, economically, you know, up and down socioeconomic status, people from across the city geographically are going to the school, and culturally and ethnically, you know, yes, the vast majority are Asian, but that can mean a lot of different national origins and backgrounds. But of course, the disparities remain, and many people are troubled by the small numbers of Black and Latino kids getting in relative to their numbers in the school system as a whole. It's worth remembering, though, that only 5% of public school students total go to these specialized schools. They're famous, they're prestigious, but they don't serve the vast majority of the public school system. So some people also think that this annual outrage is kind of disproportionate to their role in the school system.
Right, but we're only talking about a small amount of students here.
Right.
That's WNYC's education reporter, Jessica Gould. Jessica, thanks so much for joining me today.
Thank you.
A text out of context is a pretext. This matter must be put in some kind of historical perspective. Surely we must know that racism is the cancer of the American soul.
Kelly and Ryan Bullitt filed a lawsuit July 23rd on behalf of their 2 children against Park City School District and Joe Gilday. Gilday served as superintendent for the district for 6 years and retired in 2024. The Bullitts allege their kids, who are African American and now 14 and 17 years old, faced discrimination and harassment while attending Ecker Hill Middle School and Treasure Mountain Junior High from 2021 to 2023. Peter Sorensen, an attorney for the Bullitts, said the Bullitt children faced repeated harassment.
What had happened to them was sort of a pattern of racial discrimination. They were called horrible names. They were treated differently than other students that were not minorities.
According to the 3rd District Court lawsuit, one child experienced at least 4 instances of harassment based on race, the other child at least 17 incidents. The lawsuit alleges the district showed, quote, deliberate indifference to reports of race-based harassment and the failure to take action, quote, enabled future race-based assaults. Court documents say both children attended therapy and suffered extreme emotional distress due to the racial discrimination, including anxiety, fear, and depression. The lawsuit also cites a federal investigation that found over 180 incidents of harassment in the district from 2021 to 2023. The Bullitts and their 2 children were part of the U.S. Department of Education's Office for Civil Rights anonymous investigation. The office found the district did not, quote, take effective steps to eliminate a hostile environment based on race, including by not investigating all allegations of race-based harassment. Sorensen said it's up to the district to make things right.
It appears there was a pattern of treating students wrong, and we believe that our clients' rights were violated in this situation and that the school district should make it right.
The district signed an agreement to resolve the investigation in March 2024. It agreed to revise harassment policies and procedures, provide individual remedies for students, and implement a plan to educate students and parents on reporting harassment. The Bullitts are seeking compensation exceeding $300,000 and a jury trial. The district told KPCW it does not comment on pending or imminent litigation. Gilday did not respond to KPCW's request for comment sent to an email address at Colorado Early Colleges, where she is the CEO. Christine Weller, KPCW News.
Outdoors, we knew, was a real terror of life. The threat of being outdoors surfaced frequently in those days. Every possibility of excess was curtailed with it. If somebody ate too much, he could end up outdoors. If somebody used too much coal, he could end up outdoors. People could gamble themselves outdoors, drink themselves outdoors. Sometimes mothers put their sons outdoors, and when that happened, regardless of what the son had done, all sympathy was with him. He was outdoors, and his own flesh had done it. To be put outdoors by a landlord was one thing, unfortunate, but an aspect of life over which you had no control, since you couldn't control your income. But to be slack enough to put oneself outdoors, or heartless enough to put one's own kin outdoors, that was criminal.
This summer, the median U.S. home price hit another record high, $444,000.
That years-long upward trend has widened the wealth gap between renters and owners more than ever. That's been a boon for owners, but it's pricing out many would-be buyers, as NPR's Jennifer Ludden reports.
Jay Washington is 38 and grew up in the house his mother bought in Augusta, Georgia. She had no college degree and used only her single income at a local manufacturing plant.
The real estate agent told her in about 5 years, you're probably going to give me a call and thank me for being able to get this house.
And she did. Today, she's still there, and the home's value has grown to nearly $300,000. Washington lives a couple hours away in Athens and would love to own a home, not only for financial security.
It's really kind of a sign that you truly feel independent.
But like so many millennials, he graduated college at the height of the Great Recession, with unemployment peaking at 10%. What's more, his degree from a for-profit college, later sued for alleged deception, seemed worthless.
I basically was stuck in a cycle of unemployment or underemployment.
Washington eventually got another college degree and now has a good job in IT. But with student loans, plus the high cost of rent, food, and so much else, it's hard to save for a down payment. Meantime, home prices have surged more than 50% in just the last 6 years.
I feel like I'm just kind of surviving. At this point, I'm not really sure if I'm going to be able to own a house.
Most middle-class families have most of their wealth in their homes.
Michelle Dickerson researches housing and the middle class at the University of Texas at Austin. She worries about the long-term consequences as more people are shut out of ownership.
For young adults who are middle class, they are facing a future of no wealth.
To be clear, she says there's nothing wrong with renting if you can still save for retirement. It might work better for some. But for generations, it's been housing wealth that has helped many do better than their parents.
We're ending up in this space where if you're okay, it may be because your parents were okay. And if your parents were struggling, you may be struggling too.
Hi, this is Basil. He just wants to sniff you.
In Richmond, Virginia, Brittany Gilroy and her husband, Philip West, rent this red brick two-story home along with a roommate. Both are 35, and when they moved in with a friend, they thought it would be only for a few months until they bought a house. That was nearly 4 years ago.
Pretty much every time when we looked at a house, we were like, we said no, and then the prices of the houses go up.
Both of them have good-paying jobs, but the homes they see are either way above their price range or need repairs that would wipe them out. It's all put on hold, another major life decision.
It's definitely part of our consideration for do we have kids or not, It's a bit of a clock.
Gilroy only wants children if they can buy a place and settle down. Safe neighborhood, good schools. But with prices so high, they worry about taking on all that debt.
I feel like we're not the only ones living in this constant state of uncertainty, and if you want to make a dive into buying a house, you're going into the deep end. There is no kiddie pool of a starter home.
In fact, there is a massive housing shortage, especially of starter homes, and it's driving prices up. Last year, a housing developer in Utah urged the state to make it easier to build affordable condos, and in that letter, he warned about the widening wealth gap between owners and renters. Tom Henriod of Rockworth Companies wrote that it could foster, quote, discord between classes and increased risk of societal unrest.
That might be going to a little bit of an extreme, but if there's a feeling that there's a few haves and, a bunch of have-nots, I think all of us can see some of the problems that come with that.
He also has 4 children and says young people need hope that they can make it on their own.
You see how much a house might cost that you might want to live in, and you look at your income coming out of college or something like that, it might feel overwhelming, depressing, difficult, and that's certainly an effect for sure.
Congress recently weighed in with a law that aims to eventually expand the supply of homes, and prices in some places are cooling off. For now, though, of the many factors dividing housing haves and have-nots, a big one is timing.
It was my 4th year in college, and there was a foreclosed home.
Matt Moradchek bought his first house with a friend back in 2010 using a federal tax credit created in the wake of the housing crash.
They added bedrooms in the basement and rented them out. Soon after, his girlfriend, now wife, Amanda, bought a small fixer-upper with just $5,000 down.
Very, very dated. There was carpet in the bathroom, puke green sink with a puke green matching oven.
Family members pitched in to spruce it up. A few years later, they were shocked that the value had risen by $50,000. They traded up, then, after even more housing equity, traded up again when they and their 3 children moved to Orlando, Florida. That was in 2021, when they locked in a mortgage rate of 2.6% just before rates spiked. So lucky.
100%. It was probably the bottom rate that we could have gotten along the way.
Their younger siblings back in Minnesota are facing a very different market. Still, Matt's brother managed to buy outside the city where he works, and Amanda is encouraging her 22-year-old brother to sacrifice, rice and beans it, so he can buy something, anything soon. A stepping stone now, she says, will make all the difference later. Jennifer Ludden, NPR News.
I ain't wanting to be fat like that. I do not want my baby to be fat like that because I know a black man in America, you can't be like that. I try to...
A federal program about nutrition education is supposed to disappear in a few weeks because of cuts from last year's Republican tax and spending law, even though eating well is a focus of the Make America Healthy Again movement. NPR's Joe Hernandez reports.
Elines Olivares is standing inside Ray Food Market, a small corner store in West Philadelphia, hoping to chat with customers about nutrition.
So we teach people about fiber, what they can eat, what they should eat, let them have a little taste test of our oatmeal today.
Olivares is a nutrition educator with the Food Trust, a local nonprofit focused on food and nutrition security, and she's here as part of their Healthy Corner Store initiative, which aims to get more healthy food into convenience stores in lower-income neighborhoods. She strikes up a conversation with customer Sharon Dudley.
Okay, I thought it would just be...
Dudley has been wondering if the honey wheat bread she likes is actually healthy.
I thought honey wheat was like, okay, they might not say nothing about the honey, but at least it's got wheat in it.
Olivares told her it was, in fact, flavored white bread, and after the conversation, Dudley said she planned to switch to whole wheat.
I gotta change my bread.
That program and many others across the U.S. are funded by an offshoot of SNAP, or the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, called SNAP-Ed. The decision by the Trump administration to eliminate SNAP-Ed has confounded nutrition experts like Tashara Leak, a professor of nutritional sciences at Cornell University.
It doesn't make sense when we have an administration, the Make America Healthy Again efforts that are focused on decreasing consumption of ultra-processed foods and wanting to encourage people to eat more fruits and vegetables, to then get rid of the largest federally funded nutrition education program that helps to achieve those goals.
The White House did not provide specifics to NPR about how or whether eliminating this program aligned with the goals of the Make America Healthy Again agenda, but White House spokesperson Anna Kelly touted sweeping changes made to SNAP food benefits as a whole, including shifting more costs to states and expanding those subject to work requirements to include older people and parents of teenagers. Kelly said in a statement that the president was, quote, strengthening SNAP for the Americans who need it by ensuring these programs are sustainable for future generations. The Department of Agriculture, which oversees SNAP-Ed, said it would continue to provide nutrition education through other initiatives. SNAP-Ed critics have pointed to a 2019 government watchdog report that said the USDA wasn't effectively tracking the success of its nutrition programs, but people involved in SNAP-Ed say a reporting system set up recently was working well.
We had a very robust reporting mechanism.
Gina Christ oversaw SNAP-Ed in Delaware.
We had to gather the data, and then it was actually reported nationally.
An Association for SNAP-Ed Educators found that 40% of participants said they were eating more fruit and 34% ate more vegetables. Advocates say changes like this can produce future healthcare savings by lowering rates of food insecurity and obesity. Heidi Gorniak, Vice President of Programs at the Food Trust in Philadelphia, says the loss of the program comes at a difficult moment for many Americans.
We're at a time where food in general is becoming less affordable. There's SNAP cuts coming, food insecurity is rising, and one of the goals of SNAP-Ed is to teach people how to shop and cook healthy on a budget.
SNAP-Ed providers with any remaining funding have to spend it by the end of September. Joe Hernandez, NPR News, Philadelphia.
Let me say something that gets to the very crux of the matter, and this may be offensive for some to hear who are not on the side that we're on. White people, we have been the problem for 400 years.
Say that again.
Let me say it one more time for those of you who didn't hear me. White people, we have been the problem for 400 years.
That's when stuff started moving real slow for me.
Tonight, jurors heard from the witnesses of a deadly shooting outside an Indianapolis bar.
They also watched some of the security video that shows the key moments that lead up to that crime. Day 2 wrapping up today in the murder trial of Caden Douglas. Douglas is accused of using racial slurs before fatally shooting Jeremy Dillingham, and this happened last summer.
Our Ashton Hackman was in the courtroom and has the testimony.
In the courtroom Tuesday, jurors heard testimony from witnesses who were at the Mucky Duck pub the night that Jeremy Dillingham was shot and killed. Prosecutors say those witnesses show that Caden Douglas was aggressive, drunk, and looking for a fight.
A bartender described Jeremy Dillingham as a laid-back, smooth, big, chill dude. He described Caden Douglas much differently: combative, aggressive, belligerent. The bartender testified staff kicked Douglas out. Surveillance video showed Douglas trying to get back inside before sitting outside revving his engine. A close friend testified Douglas repeatedly used racial slurs and called Dillingham to his car.
Between the vehicle pulling out and the point here where it's driving away without Mr. Dillingham being next to the passenger side, what is the defendant saying to Mr. Dillingham?
I got something for you. Along the lines of, come here, come here. He was more repeating himself over and over again.
Prosecutors then played surveillance video of the shooting. Dillingham is seen walking alongside the car. He swings into the passenger side window. Seconds later, a gunshot. Dillingham collapses as friends rush to help. He later died at the hospital.
We are generally getting into fights. We're very much regulars at that bar. After all of that, it kind of changed it.
Defense attorneys challenged both witnesses. They emphasized the bartender never saw the confrontation and questioned whether Dillingham's friend ever saw a gun. Questions jurors will weigh as the trial continues. In Indianapolis, Ashton Hackman, 13 News.
Now, the trial is expected to wrap up Thursday with closing arguments and deliberations. Douglas faces at least 45 years in prison if convicted.
The man-knot, race, class, genre, and the dilemmas of black manhood.
Ivy Kelly has always insisted he's innocent. He was tried and convicted of a 1989 murder in Chicago's south suburbs. He got 30 years in prison, but an appeals court raised doubts about the trial's fairness. Eventually, prosecutors made an offer. He'd be released if he just admitted guilt. Kelly's not the only person faced with a choice like this: drop an innocence claim and walk free, or keep fighting for exoneration and stay locked up. WBEZ's Chip Mitchell sat down with him in the Cook County Jail to see how he made his decision.
Inside the jail, I'm brought to a small room.
Okay, yeah.
Guards bring in Ivy Kelly. He's 51. He's got short hair, parted and styled into waves. He wears eyeglasses with a dark brow line. He looks bookish. No nonsense.
I'm just going to go in chronological order.
We don't have much time, so I jump right in and ask about the murder victim. His name was Joe Ward.
I met Joe Ward when I was a freshman in high school at Polaris High School in Oak Lawn. We became friends, and he became actually my best friend.
Kelly says he needed a best friend because his stepfather was abusive to him and his mother.
My mom also had an abusive childhood, and so I think I understood why she allowed things to go on, probably fearful for her own safety at times.
Kelly bounced between their home, his grandmother's home, and Aunt's place. Eventually he was homeless. Ward would take him in.
He would sneak me in his basement, and sometimes when his mom would come down in the morning, she would just look at me because we never asked could I spend the night. And she would like come upstairs and eat, and she would just feed all of us.
Kelly managed to graduate from high school. He had 5 kids, but he was convicted of a felony for firing a gun during an altercation, and he dealt drugs with Ward.
The plan was to start buying and rehabbing houses so that we could stop selling drugs, stop doing what we were doing.
The plan went off the rails on December 10th, 1999, when 2 men approached Ward outside a home in Robbins. At least one fired shots, killing him. Kelly and another guy were arrested for it. They both pleaded not guilty, but were convicted. Kelly got that long prison sentence, 30 years. First, he was put in Menard, maximum security, 5 hours south of Chicago. There, he kept fighting for exoneration. He got help from a fellow inmate who knew how to prepare and file a petition to challenge a conviction.
I came back to him and I asked him, I said, what do I owe you? And he said, you got a bag of coffee? Somebody who cared enough to help me, all he wanted was a bag of Maxwell's coffee. They cost like $1.40.
In his filing, Kelly argued his trial attorney made mistakes so severe they violated his constitutional rights. Stuff like failing to question a key witness about a criminal case of his own, or about being paid by the federal government to provide information. Those things would have hurt the witness's credibility. Kelly also accused the prosecutors of hiding evidence, including some reports about the murder written by a corrupt Robbins detective in charge of the case. The year after Kelly's arrest, the detective pleaded guilty to a federal racketeering charge for taking cash to protect a drug dealer. Kelly also accused prosecutors of hiding a pending assault charge against the cop who took over as the murder case's lead detective.
Why withhold the detective's background?
The prosecutors argued they didn't withhold anything material to the case. So there was Kelly in prison, convicted of killing a man he called his best friend. He kept trying to prove his innocence. Eventually, his claims started gaining traction. It led to an agonizing decision. And here's how it went down. An appellate court ordered a Cook County judge to hold a hearing, a thorough proceeding with evidence and arguments on whether Kelly was entitled to a retrial. As that hearing drew near, the prosecutors offered him a deal. They'd agree to cutting his sentence by nearly 8 years. He'd get out of prison immediately, but he'd have to admit guilt in the shooting. This kind of bargaining, you've probably heard about defendants pleading guilty before trial in exchange for a lighter sentence. The deal-making can also happen years later, like before one of these post-conviction hearings. Experts say more often than not, the person who's locked up takes the deal.
And so we got in the courtroom. The judge was like, Mr. Kelly, are you aware that they're offering you time considered served? And I said, I'm innocent. She said, do you understand that you can go home today? And I said, I understand. And so do you still want to refuse time served? I said, I still refuse.
Okay, so in 2023, almost a year later, the judge threw out Kelly's conviction. But the prosecutors wouldn't drop the charges. They insisted on retrying him for the murder, and until then, on keeping him behind bars. Kelly says he could not understand it.
They argued that I was a threat to the community, a threat to a witness, and the judge ordered me detained. And so I was confused the whole time because I'm not dangerous if I plead guilty, but I'm dangerous because I maintain my innocence.
I asked Cook County State's Attorney Eileen O'Neill Burke's office why Kelly would be more of a threat if he kept fighting to clear his name. A spokesperson said there would be no comment on a pending case. So by the time the judge tossed out Kelly's conviction, he'd been moved to a prison closer to Chicago. After years of good behavior in prison, he got minimum security status, he says.
So it was like a college campus almost.
But pending the retrial, the judge ordered him back to Cook County Jail. He hadn't been there in decades. First, he was put in a detox unit full of drug addicts, dozens to a room. Then a maximum security division with mostly young men charged with serious crimes.
So it's like the worst division in the county jail.
Kelly also found out his mother had cancer. Less than 3 months after his transfer from prison to the jail, she died. It was all too much for him. The plea offer was still on the table. Ahead of his mother's funeral, he considered taking it.
And I was ready to give up then. I was ready to just give up and go home so I could be there when they buried her.
But, Kelly says, his lawyer and friends all told him the same thing.
You're strong. You gotta keep fighting. You came all this way. They stole a quarter century of your life. You can't just give up like that.
He knew the fight for exoneration could keep him behind bars longer, probably years longer. But he dug in again.
Yeah, I want to go home. I miss my kids. I'm estranged from my kids now. But at the same token, I know I'm innocent. So I feel like whatever I got to do, if I got to sit, I got to sit.
Ivy Kelly has already been locked up for 26 years. His retrial is set for November. He knows he might lose. If he does, he may not get out of prison until 2030. Chip Mitchell, WBEZ News.
I want to also talk about, in this case, they talked about mental health, but also gun control. And we have to begin to understand, I say you can't understand the gun mania if you don't understand racism and white supremacy. The gun is the answer to conscious and or subconscious. The answer, the response to the white collective feeling they can be genetically annihilated by black genetic material. And the gun is a great equalizer. I encourage everybody to get a copy of the ISIS papers and read.
A shooting at a festival in Seattle has left several people dead. On Spotlight, we examine America's gun violence crisis. Viewer discretion is advised due to the discussion around self-harm.
A nation built on the right to bear arms is facing a deadly reckoning. At least 130 Americans die daily due to firearm injuries. From homes and streets across America to a campaign stage in Pennsylvania, no one has been untouched by the gun violence debate. The country has one of the highest rates of gun deaths in the world. On Spotlight today, from suicides behind closed doors to shootings that shock the nation, America's gun violence crisis continues to escalate.
The United States is reeling under the impact of another deadly incident of gun violence. A shooting in Seattle has left 3 people dead and 4 others injured, including a toddler. This was the scene in Seattle after 2 gunmen opened fire during a food festival, turning a celebration into another chapter in America's long gun violence story. One suspect is now under arrest, while another is currently presumed to be on the run. But this is not an isolated tragedy, because in the United States, guns kill more than 100 people every single day. An average American citizen is more likely to die due to gun violence than a terrorist attack. And behind every number is a question America has struggled to answer for decades. How did a nation built on individual freedom become a country where the right to own a gun often clashes with the right to feel safe? That is because the scale of America's gun problem sets it apart from almost every other wealthy nation. The largest share of firearm deaths come from individual suicides, often involving people in moments of deep personal crisis. Now look at the data. The United States accounts for only around 4% of the world's population. Yet it accounts for roughly 1/3 of all global firearm suicides, and this is a part of America's gun crisis that often receives less attention. While mass shootings like the one in Seattle capture headlines, the majority of firearm deaths in the U.S. come from individual suicides. Researchers say the presence of a firearm during a moment of personal crisis can turn an impulsive decision into a fatal one. The debate, therefore, is not only about crime or public shootings, it's also about mental health, access to support systems, and how a society responds to people in their most vulnerable moments. In 2008, during the George W. Bush administration, firearm deaths stood at over 31,000. By the end of Barack Obama's first term in 2012, the number had risen slightly, even as the country began a national conversation on gun control after mass shootings like Sandy Hook. By 2016, the final year of Obama presidency, firearm deaths had climbed further to nearly 39,000, with gun control remaining one of the most polarizing issues in American politics. During Donald Trump's first term, firearm deaths surged to over 45,000 in 2020, a year marked by the COVID-19 pandemic, social unrest, and a record spike in gun sales. Under Joe Biden, firearm deaths remained at historic levels, with 2024 recording more than 44,000 firearm deaths. But the reason this issue has proven so difficult to solve is because America's gun debate is not only about numbers. It is about rights, politics, culture, and identity. For some Americans, gun ownership is a constitutionally protected freedom and a form of personal security. But for others, the rising death toll is proof that stronger restrictions are needed. And between these two visions of America, efforts to find a common ground have repeatedly stalled. So when Americans talk about gun violence, the images that often come to mind are school shootings or mass shootings, but the crisis is much wider. Thousands die every year through suicides, and thousands more through homicides, and millions live with the consequences. A shooting does not end when the bullets stop. Survivors often face lifelong physical injuries. Families carry trauma. Communities change how they live, and children practice active shooter drills before they are old enough to understand why. America's gun violence crisis is not evenly distributed either. Black Americans experience firearm homicides at disproportionately high rates. Researchers point to multiple factors: poverty, historical inequality, neighborhood violence, and the lack of access to social services, and the availability of firearms. For many communities, the debate is not only about gun ownership, it is about why violence takes root in the first place. Now, experts argue that reducing gun deaths requires looking beyond the weapon itself towards the social conditions that allow violence to spread. At the center of America's gun debate is one line written more than 200 years ago, the Second Amendment. For gun rights supporters, it is a fundamental constitutional protection, a safeguard against government overreach, a right to defend oneself. For gun control advocates, the question is different. How should a 200-year-old amendment apply to a country with hundreds of millions of privately owned firearms? The Supreme Court has repeatedly expanded gun rights. In 2008, the court ruled that the Second Amendment protects an individual right to own a handgun for self-defense. And in 2022, the court struck down restrictions on carrying guns in public. The decision made it harder for states to impose certain gun restrictions. Prominent Democrats, including former Vice President Kamala Harris, have been accused of playing down the scale of America's gun crisis. Harris famously defended her right to own a firearm in her 2025 book written after her electoral defeat to President Trump. And beyond individual politicians, few organizations have shaped America's gun debate more than the National Rifle Association. Founded in 1871 as a shooting organization, the NRA transformed into one of the most powerful political groups in Washington. Its message has remained consistent. The problem is not too many guns. The problem is people misusing them. The organization argues that more armed citizens create a safer society. Now, critics argue the NRA has blocked meaningful reforms for decades. The NRA has supported candidates who oppose stricter gun laws, graded lawmakers on their gun positions, and helped turn the issue into one of the most powerful voting questions in American politics. And among the political leaders who have most closely aligned themselves with the gun rights movement is Donald Trump. During his presidency, Trump positioned himself as a strong defender of the Second Amendment. At NRA events and campaign rallies, he repeatedly promised gun owners that his administration would protect their right to bear arms.
And I promise you this, with me at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, no one will lay a finger own your firearms, just as took place for 4 years when I was your president.
Instead of supporting a ban on firearms, Trump has focused on other measures, including stronger security in schools to prevent mass shootings.
For about $12 billion, we could fund armed security guards at the entrance to every school in America and also arm every willing teacher. We want to arm some of these teachers that have to go through rigorous, or some people say vigorous. I like vigorous better. I don't like rigorous. They have to go through vigorous training, but they're already there, and they'll do better than anybody you could put in, and they love our children.
After the assassination attempt against him in 2024, Trump himself became a victim of gun violence. The attack reignited conversations about firearm access and political violence, but it did not change America's fundamental divide. Because for millions of Americans, guns represent danger. For millions of others, guns represent protection. So why, despite thousands of deaths, despite school shootings, despite political battles, has America never banned gun ownership? Well, the answer lies in history, law, and identity. The United States has more civilian-owned firearms than any other country in the world. The Second Amendment is embedded in the Constitution. The Supreme Court has repeatedly protected gun rights. And millions of Americans see owning a gun not as a problem, but as a freedom worth defending.
Very emotional when I think about these things. I'm so sorry. The Second Amendment is, you can't put a value on it. Well, I'm a 3-time Trump voter, and nobody is perfect, but he is a million times better than anything we've had an opportunity to vote for during my lifetime, and that includes Ronald Reagan. No offense to Ronnie.
The debate is no longer simply about guns. It is about what America values more, individual liberty or collective safety. And somewhere between these debates lies one of America's most difficult questions: how to protect individual rights while preventing more lives from being lost.
You know, I and my white friends.
The autopsy and the death investigation of 18-year-old Nolan Wells is complete, but the findings will not be made public yet. The autopsy was conducted by the Mississippi State Medical Examiner's Office. It's now going to be presented to a grand jury. Meanwhile, civil rights attorney Ben Crump joined the parents of Nolan Wells Thursday at the National Urban League Conference in Nashville. They are demanding answers about Wells' death during that July 4th boating trip off the Gulf Coast, where Wells traveled with friends to Horn Island but did not return with the group. His body was found 2 days later. Wells' parents say conflicting accounts and missing details have deepened their concerns.
Just know we will not be distracted. We are ready to do whatever we need to do as his parents to continue advocating for him, because Nolan is not here. He is not here to speak for himself. He is not here to tell us what happened. So again, we will not rest until we get answers.
Crump is calling on state leaders to provide the evidence collected in the case for the family's review.
And we have breaking news at 6. Subpoenas have been issued in connection with the death investigation of Nolan Wells.
Yeah, the 18-year-old went missing after a boating trip with friends to Horn Island July 4th, and 2 days later, he was found dead. The Jackson County Chancery Court issued subpoenas Tuesday to 5 different apps and companies. Those include Life360, Snapchat, Meta platforms, TikTok, and WhatsApp. The court is requiring all records, data, documents, and anything else regarding the accounts of Nolan Wells be released within 21 days. The request stemmed from claims social media sites and posts were altered or deleted after Wells was found dead at Horn Island. When Nolan Wells went missing, the Jackson County Sheriff's Department said Wells' friends had a cell phone. His mother, Christine Wansley, reported Wells missing after he went on that boating trip and didn't come back. His friends said Nolan chose to stay behind with a girl he'd met on the island who has not officially been identified. An independent autopsy listed Nolan's cause of death as undetermined pending further investigation. Local law enforcement and the Jackson County DA said their findings would not immediately be released to the public, but rather turned over to a grand jury. In a request to use sonar scans during the search for Wells, the State Department of Marine Resources listed in a document Wells had been drinking heavily. There was no attribution listed there. Civil rights attorney Ben Crump, who is representing the family of Nolan Wells, was scheduled to give an update on the case Thursday morning. 16 WAPT has been closely following this investigation on our website, on our app, where you can find the latest updates on everything we know so far.
You know, I admire white friends. One man first arrested in the death of Daniel Erving at Lake Ray Hubbard has now been indicted in that investigation, and the Dallas County Medical Examiner's report gives a closer look at what all three were doing before 18-year-old Erving went under and did not resurface. Fox 4 Sean Rabb is in our newsroom with the story. Sean.
And the family of Daniel Erving and high-profile attorney Ben Crump want a deeper investigation and for someone to be charged with more than tampering with evidence. That's what Lucas Roper is charged with, and now charges he is also indicted on. Back in April, Daniel Erving, Lucas Roper, and the third team all went to Lake Ray Hubbard. Jumping in the water, but something happened. Erving called for help before he drowned. Days would pass before Lucas Roper and another team with them said anything. Roper was indicted for tampering because he took and moved Erving's phone and clothes, later telling police he knew there would be an investigation. An autopsy report concludes that Daniel Erving drowned, and despite some public concern, there are no current suspicions of foul play. Anthony Farmer is an attorney not involved in this case, and I asked him about Lucas Roper being charged with tampering and interference, and right now, nothing more.
That's the obvious selection. That's what they feel they can prove based on the elements of the offense. They feel they can meet those elements. I will say that the arrest and the indictment is significant because it can lead to further evidence. And so that's not to say that at some point these defendants will be charged with something even more serious like a murder.
Now, Farmer says it is not unusual for other evidence to be discovered or testimony changes, and that opens the door for someone to be charged with a more significant crime. Daniel Erving's family hoping that will happen. Family attorneys are also hoping to meet with DA's office to discuss the case evidence in the coming weeks.
Sean, thank you.
White friends, indeed. Context of White Supremacy. Gus T. Renegade in for another broadcast, hopefully to share constructive information on the global system of white supremacy. Today's date, Saturday, August 1, 2026. So I have been told. We should be here Sunday, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. That is tomorrow evening. White guest. You can... it'd be difficult. I was going to say you could revisit Medical Apartheid, but that's kind of a big book. Might be a challenge to reinvestigate the whole thing for tomorrow. But I guess you could, go back, listen to an episode or two, or flip through the book. Harriet A. Washington, one of my all-time favorites, easily top 5. Harriet A. Washington's Medical Apartheid, very relevant for tomorrow's broadcast. In fact, a number of programs, but that one would certainly be at the head of the class in terms of preparation for tomorrow, Sunday, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, and then we should also be here on Tuesday, same time, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. And then I think I already announced this past Thursday, I should be at an event. I think it's Thursday. I think it's kind of tentative, so we'll have to see. If that is happening, we do our little switcheroo, and we'll do neutralizing workplace racism on Wednesday. I was planning that, that's how we'll move forward. But just making sure, never know. Life might switch things around and what have you, even when you have solidly laid plans. So being flexible to see what happens. But if things go down as planned, I'll be at the event Thursday. We'll do neutralizing workplace racism on Wednesday, normal time, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. If the event does not happen, we'll just keep it as is. Thursday for neutralizing workplace racism, and then we'll be back on schedule either way for the Catherine Massey Book Club on Friday. But regardless, here tomorrow, and maybe, hopefully, I will know definitively by Tuesday, but maybe even sooner, and I can announce as we are on the air over the next couple of days or so, tomorrow and then again on Tuesday. I think those are pretty much set unless something wacky happens in the next 24, 48 hours, which certainly could. But at least for right now, it looks like we're ready to roll tomorrow and then Tuesday. White guests only. Even in fact, tomorrow's broadcast, I told you medical apartheid, health, racism, white supremacy, right? And then for Tuesday, the primary method for maintaining a system of white supremacy racism, white people lying. Our subject for Tuesday, can't wait. White guests for both of them. Can't wait, get to talk to a white person about white people lying for the whole program. Can't wait. All right. Sunday, Tuesday, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. Even that alone, what other programs have you heard where black people question white people about white people lying for the entire broadcast? Please send links, information if you have such evidence. Much obliged. Speaking of white people lying, last Saturday on the Counter-Racist Weekly Review, Dusty made a request on behalf of the late victim of white supremacy, Sade C. Robinson, 19 years old, just like some of these young teens that we've been hearing about. Daniel Erving, Nolan Wells, didn't even get to start. And what do they all have in common? They all thought not all white people are racist. Spent apparently their last moments on earth with a white person and or white people that they did not think were racist. Gus T, many non-white people in the known universe have made the same fatal error. And I guess we have to get that autopsy for Daniel Erving, Texas. That's when they got the indictment for tampering with evidence. I don't know if they were drinking, but I do know Sade Robinson and old convicted Maxwell Anderson, they went to the bars. I know Nolan Wells, they said they were drinking a lot. I don't know about Daniel Erving, we'll have to see, but that worst combination in the known universe, white people and alcohol, seems to be a pattern in these cases as well. Gus T, someone brought up online this week when I posted Nolan Wells, and they had different people saying, oh yeah, we've been drinking all day in Mississippi. Imagine that. And anybody who says black people are geniuses or even mediocre, average students on racism, white supremacy, I humbly, tragically submit Nolan Wells. How can you even tell me that black people are like D- students in racism? You are a black person in college, unless I'm mistaken. You go to a Mississippi island where you are the only black person and you are intoxicated. Expert on racism, you think? Not that I expect 19-year-old black people to be PhD geniuses in what racism, white supremacy is, what it means to be classified as white. Hey, I don't expect 99-year-old black people to be PhD experts in what it means to be classified as white. They said James Byrd Jr., I could have put him on that list as well. He wasn't a teeny bopper. He would check all the boxes I just gave. White friends? Check. White people and alcohol? Check. Fatal error? Check. Anyway, back to, we are not experts. Gus T, non-white people, we are not experts on racism. Make sure you talk to your children about all of those cases because they were all teens. Nolan Wells, Sade Robinson, Daniel Erving, white, hey, your non-white offspring, nieces, nephews, cousins, neighbors, young people, they have white friends. Hey, it's lots of cases. White friends. Even hey, you even put Michelle Alexander in there. Anyway, last week I gave a request. If you got 15 minutes, you don't even have to turn off the TV, Netflix, YouTube, whatever it is. 15 minutes for Sade C. Robinson. We talk all the time, how do white people conceal constructive information on the system of white supremacy? I said we have a live-time illustration right here in Milwaukee. I created a PDF already typed up in such, requesting, hey, we need the voir dire Latin, unless I have been mistaken, which is simply the written report of the jury selection process, the transcript of all of that. The trial was televised, YouTube, live stream, all of that, but they did not provide video of the first day. You had to be in court like Gus T for all of that, and even if you were, there's information in this written report, the voir dire, that you would not have access to even if you were sitting front row in court. So, this voir dire, we definitely need that so we can ascertain how did they end up with only 2 black people on the jury. And then we need those unsealed letters. Now, it shouldn't have been too big a deal to get either of these. System of white supremacy, racism, man, everything is a challenge. So the latter, getting those letters of support for Maxwell Anderson, I feel very comfortable making the conclusion, I will confess if I'm in error, that these are white people who wrote to support their pal, neighbor, co-worker, fellow race soldier, Maxwell Anderson, to say that he's not such a bad dude and maybe he chopped up this black female, maybe he didn't, but either way, we shouldn't go too hard on old Max. He's a good dude. We need to get these letters unredacted. Gus T filed a motion, Gus T filed a motion, not yesterday, months ago. Gus T, because it's August now, so for sure. Gus T filed a motion months ago to get these letters unsealed, and the clock expired for the Max Anderson's attorney, Anthony Cotton, suspected racist white man. The clock expired on Friday, July 31, for him to offer whatever defense reasons, justification he might have for why these letters of support need to remain sealed. I think the judge is supposed to take, I'm not an expert in jurisprudence, still learning about everything in the world. Certainly this whole process, big time learning experience, but constructive, we'll hope. We'll see. But the judge, white woman, Judge Crivello, who presided, I was right there in court with her for 2 weeks about all this. You can see her online and everything. She was there for the sentencing and everything. I think she's supposed to have like 2 weeks to review whatever written reports the defense attorney has submitted. My motion, and I even amended my motion this week with the report about the theft of the storage unit. I actually played that report here on the Counter-Racist Weekly Review about 2 weeks ago. I think the unit, or at least Sade Robinson's mother, Miss Scarborough, I think she became aware that Sade's storage unit had been looted on Friday, July 10, and then this was reported on WISN the following week. I believe that was the 16th. This was reported on WISN, which is local Wisconsin or local Milwaukee news specifically. I shared or amended my motion with that information because I said there is a total pattern practice of concealment around this entire case, really theft and concealment. And I started number one, theft of Sade C. Robinson's life, theft of Sade C. Robinson's skull, which we still don't have. 2 years from her murder, we still don't have. The concealment of these letters of support for a convicted killer, a convicted dismemberer, a convicted arsonist, a convicted murderer, a convicted racist. Say it ain't so. And we can't get the voir dire. These are public records. Every aspect, I said this last week, for those sealed letters of support as well as the report of the jury selection process, which is officially day one of the trial, Maxwell C. Anderson, these are public records. There is no expectation of private. This case was on 48 hours on YouTube. Dang it, the whole trial is on YouTube except for the jury selection. And then they got 48 hours. Well, I did their segment where they got a third of the jury is on 48 hours. So you can even see them. All white women, which is why I say we need the report on the jury selection process. Really, 48 hours should have got that. Either way, these are public documents. There's no expectation of privacy. They should not be redacted, these letters of support, and particular context. They mention that in the report. They do about every week. They'll have some segment that mentions context. Context. I said that Sade Robinson's mother, she became aware that the storage unit had been looted on Friday, July 10. I was getting paperwork about the obstruction, really statewide obstruction, with regards to the voir dire reports about the jury selection process on July 9, like lots of them. It took me looking at all of this as I submitted my motion, my amendment to my motion this week, saying, hey, we have even more information. All of this should be looked at in context. In this case, there has not been transparency and disclosure. There has been an ongoing pattern of concealment that even the court is participating in because we can't get these records. We can't get the transcript. What is going on here? Last week, I encouraged folks, and I said keep it G-rated because we don't want to be, filthy and threatening and all of that. One, because we don't, have muscle to do a whole lot. But more importantly, we don't want to give any fake evidence that might suggest, oh yeah, there is a reason to keep these records sealed. There's some sort of threat, got people talking about they want to do harm or what have you, because there has been none of that. I want to be precise. There was none of that to begin with. He might say, hey, a year ago during the trial, allegedly someone phoned in threats to Anthony Cotton. Again, that's Maxwell Anderson, the defense attorney in this case. Someone phoned in threats on his voicemail and talking about, you shouldn't have took this case and you're no count so-and-so and Phil Flauan and blah, blah, blah. But those were phone threats. I was in court every day. No one was lurking in the bushes outside the courthouse. Nobody was lurking in the bathroom stalls or hiding out outside the courtroom to jump on Anthony Cotton, who is not a very big person at all. He looks like, if I had to guess, he probably weighs maybe 140 pounds. He's not a very tall person. So, I mean, hey, you could be hiding out and hop on him and, get in 3, 4, 5 good licks in before security, especially if you get him outside the courtroom or what have you, where security isn't this close. Like, oh, man, you could have hopped on him and that didn't happen. And it's been a year now. Ain't been no reports of, we waited 6 months, we were patient, and we hid out Anthony Cotton's law office or Maxwell Anderson's family. They were in court, I was going to say every day, we want to be accurate, they were not present every day because they for sure were not present for the verdict because that was short, sweet, and I think pretty much everyone knew what the verdict was going to be, so they were not present the last day of the proceedings. But I think other than that, they were there pretty much every day. And same thing. I have no evidence that anybody was lurking outside the courtroom and why did you raise that racist demon and we got to put you in the headlock. That didn't happen. Matter of fact, I interviewed, it's in the archives, I interviewed some of the participants who were in the courtroom, supporters of Sade C. Robinson. They rode the elevator with the parents, or at least the father, biological dad of Maxwell Anderson. His white dad was right there, and he and his new wife, not Anderson's biological mom, but his new wife, Max's, I guess, stepmom, that would be, so they say, they hopped on the elevator with Sade's supporters, and these are all black people, most of them black, might have been all black females, and they didn't say, wait till the door closed and get him, girls, and start whacking him with their pocketbooks and pepper spraying him, and we're going to gang up and scratch his eyeballs out. They didn't do none of that. In fact, what did they do? It's in the archives. What did they do? They said, looked at him with disgust. What they do? Almost like Neely Fuller Jr. got in their spirit. They got in the question lane. What are you doing? Why are you on this elevator? Nobody took a swing at either one of them. Nobody scratched. None of that. They got in the question lane. They were repulsed. Get away from us. Take another elevator. What are you doing here? That's what I'm saying. Where's the evidence that somebody, they wanted to, right there, many opportunities. If they wanted to plot something, they could have took the whole first week of the trial, observe their patterns and behaviors. When do they get in? Do some recon, Where do they park at? Where's their vehicle? Do they come for the afternoon session? Where did they go for lunch? All of that. Which exit did they take at the courthouse? They could have scouted all that out. When we get to next week, we're going to be on their hind parts. That didn't happen. And for sure, we had a whole year now. Nobody got their reprisal. Max been sentenced. He's gone locked up. I think they even sent him out of the state of Wisconsin. So where is the threat? And again, I can't say enough. There is no expectation of privacy. You voluntarily injected your name and opinion into a murder and dismemberment trial. Fuller, again, stand by your work. We need them records unredacted first time around. Like, it could be they release them and say, well, we need them redacted, protect people's privacy. That's not the law. in Wisconsin State. I'm very sure that that is the case. That is not the law. There is no, they could have read them letters in court. The defense could have done so. The judge could have done so. If they had behaved correctly, these records would have been unsealed. 48 hours. Could have read these letters on their series. Let's see, and particularly Gus T, having looked at all of this, you say context. I don't say there is, I say there is no coincidence at all in this. I say, I suspect some of, you pay attention to the Murdaugh trial in South Carolina? Y'all seen where the white female court reporter got in trouble, criminal trouble, for her conduct in the murder trial, which was on YouTube, high profile, same type of thing, murder trial. She even got convicted, and all that money they wasted, because now they got to redo the entire trial because of a corrupt white court clerk. Remember Ferguson? Mike Brown Jr. laid out in the street and all that, but after that, Mary Ann Twitty, court clerk, corrupt, making all those racist jokes about Obama, both of them, in fact, Michelle Obama, Barack Obama, and he's a part of the extortion racket. She fixing tickets for the white people that she like. Oh, no, you ain't got no speeding ticket. Don't even worry about it. We got the black people. Uh-oh. Mike Brown Jr.'s cousins and them. We got the same thing, I suspect, in Milwaukee, and I suspect all of this is related. What does all of this being related mean? The looting of that storage bin, the letters of support for Maxwell Anderson, even them being sealed, and we can get access to these transcripts about the jury selection process. All of that is related. Are you saying you think maybe some of the white chicks at the courthouse are the Maxwell Anderson supporters? Could be. You even think that might be related to the storage house being looted? Could be. It did all kind of happen at the same time. Oh my Lord. Woo! Program for tomorrow. Sade C. Robinson. Woo! Woo! Anyway, all of that notwithstanding, last week I made my request, and I said we're going to do the deadline as Thursday of this week, because that's when, I just told you, the motion, the deadline for the defense to respond was yesterday. I was not required to do anything. They got, hopefully, I even will take a default, because really, I don't think they have anything to say. If Anthony Cotton, had been threatened with a family, I think that would have been in the news. Like, oh, because it was in the news when they said these alleged phone messages. That was on the news. I saw that when I was in Milwaukee, and I think I said something about it during my 2-week coverage of the trial. But that notwithstanding, I haven't seen anything since then, and I check the news in Milwaukee on a regular basis. They've been having heat. You seen what happened to Tony Romo? Lord Jesus, yes. I checks the news in Milwaukee on a regular basis, and I have been since Sade Robinson. Really, I was checking the news in Wisconsin on a regular basis before we got to Sade Robinson, but I check Milwaukee specifically now all the time. Poor Tony Romo. How are we going to start the football season and no Tony Romo? Look, Tony, you're not classified as white, so you don't need to listen to the cows, but at least Tony should have listened to Gus T. What did Gus T say? Sobriety would be best. That's what Tony said. And, hey, that is what you can expect. You go to Milwaukee, you are going to be intoxicated. That's all they do. That's what I said. They don't do nothing but drink. I think the only place that I went where you could not get a beer was the courthouse. Other than that, oh yeah, you go to the museum, you need a beer? You can't look at the paintings without a beer? Go and get 2 beers. You can everything. What I said, Sade Robinson, she was on a date. You got to go to the bar. They don't do nothing in Milwaukee but drink and drink and drink and tell Brett Favre stories. And what he's an alcoholic too. Until Jeffrey Dahmer still, what is it? Jeff Dahmer was an alcoholic too. He ain't do nothing but go to the bar and eat black people. Sobriety would be best. the request. I'm just making 2 amendments. I said the same thing I said last week. If you can sign your name, if you can keep track of what today's date is, and you can send an email, hey, I'll even do the upgrade. If you can send an email to 2 or more people at the same time, that is all that is required. The deadline was going to be Thursday. Now with all of this, we're just going to continue to send emails until the letters have been unsealed. The voir dire has been provided. If their mailbox gets filled every day, whoopee. If you already sent an email, feel free to send another 3 or 12. The only change, I think I'm not in Wisconsin, as some people know or don't know, Gus T, 206, Seattle proud, but not being Wisconsin, I think one of the emails was in error. That is not a problem now. The correct email addresses, and we're sending this to 4 specific white people in Wisconsin, Milwaukee specifically. I have these addresses listed on social media, have cute, or at least I think they're constructive and helpful graphic images with this information. I just need to update it with the current 4 accurate email addresses. I will give them here slowly. You can anytime drop me an email and I will make sure you have the updated correct 4 addresses. If you already sent an email, bravo, and really thank you on behalf of Sade C. Robinson. Gus T does not get a nickel out of this. Peanut butter sandwich, nothing. Sade C. Justice for Sade C. Robinson. Again, same thing I said last week. Hopefully not asking too much to take 15 minutes for a black female, 19-year-old who was dismembered by a racist demon. Is that asking too much? Gus T is a moron sometimes. I gave incorrect address. Is it asking too much? You just got to forward. If you already sent the email, take the addresses I'm about to give you, forward. Is that asking too much for Sade Robinson? For Sade C. Robinson. The 4 addresses, directional, direct operational oversight. Stephanie Garbo, that spelling is STEPHANIE dot Garbo, GARBO at WI-Courts, COURTS.gov. Next, email number 2, Holly, HOLLY dot SZABLEWSKI at WI-Courts, COURTS.gov. All of these are going to be WI-COURTS.gov for Wisconsin. So WI-Courts.gov. That's going to be all of these for the ending. Let's see. Last 2. Presiding core channels. Carl Ashley, and for some folks, this email I think was correct from the beginning. So for some of you, you may have already emailed Carl Ashley. Bravo. You can keep that there. CARL.ASHLEY at WI-Courts, COURTS.gov. And the last address, and I think this also has been on the graphics, and I've given this email out from the beginning, so this one also, if you share it here, great. You can add 2 or 3 more. CRS dot Milwaukee, that is MILWAUKEE at WI-Courts.gov. Those are the 4. And yeah, at minimum, their inbox, they should know. These are public records. The public is waiting impatiently. We did not forget Sade C. Robinson, and we are watching and waiting from a variety of locations for Sade C. Robinson. Much obliged. Again, thank you for all of the folks who sent an email. I didn't hear one person. I got lots of folks who emailed. I think I even got a few folks who I need to make sure I respond. They wrote in the last 24 hours or so, 48 hours, where it's been lots happening in that period, but I will make sure to respond to everyone so you have all of the correct email addresses. Enormous gratitude for the folks who took time out of their schedule on behalf of Sade to send out these emails. I didn't hear one person say, "Oh man, Gus, this took more than 15 minutes. Oh man, this was really difficult." At max, it was, I got one failed response from the email. Is there a better address? And again, that is a forward. Only takes a few minutes, which is what I think everyone, yep, that's a forward. I can do that for Sade. I can do that for Sade. In fact, it takes so little time. If you have an extra moment, you can visit the website, SadesVoiceFoundation.com. SadesVoiceFoundation.com. In fact, if you really ain't got nothing to do, I've heard from time to time, I have heard from non-white people who say, "I'm bored. I need something to do with regards to battling racism, white supremacy." If you need some extra credit, you can write an email to Wisconsin State Representative Sheila Stubbs, black female, victim of white supremacy. Sheila Stubbs was at the trial. She was at the last day for the murder trial of Maxwell C. Anderson. She was with Sade Robinson's mother, Sheena Scarborough. She invited Miss Scarborough to Madison, the capital of Wisconsin, to get that task force for missing and murdered black females, and talking about the experience of Sade and why this task force is needed. Representative Stubbs had been working to get this task force for years before Sade Robinson's murder and dismemberment even happened. But you can contact her to voice your concerns about accessing the voir dire, the written report of the jury selection process, as well as the unsealed, or getting these sealed letters, getting them unsealed and unredacted. You can email Representative Stubbs. Her email address is rep.stubbs, STUBBS, at legis, LEGIS, .wisconsin.gov. Need it one more time? I'll give it to you again. rep.stubbs at legis, LEGIS, .wisconsin, WISCONSIN.gov. You can email Representative Stubbs and just let her know that you've been following this case and appreciate her hard work, not only for this case and supporting Ms. Scarborough, but for getting that task force, or attempting, because they haven't made it yet. She's faced lots of white opposition in Madison, but for her efforts for all these years to establish the task force for missing and murdered African American females, and just let her know we need the voir dire and we need the letters of support. Milwaukee Courthouse, they have had there's been willful obstruction from the Milwaukee County Courthouse in accessing these public records. We would really appreciate if she can continue her support and look into this manner to make them produce these records, produce justice for Sade C. Robinson. That would be great if you would like to send her, again, a G-rated letter. And you can include the same case number. It's in the email. I'll give it to you here if you need it, but it's in the letter, that PDF that I already wrote up. The case number for the Maxwell Anderson criminal case is 2024CF001692. The official case number for this, since we are on business, but that's just extra credit if you would like to email Representative Stubbs so that she also knows that lots of people are very concerned about this case. Yes, we got the conviction, but that is not the only component of justice for Sade. There is so much more, and yeah, if folks need any extra motivation, Gus T., I do suspect, because there has been so much deliberate white lies and concealment, I do suspect some of these folks at the courthouse, y'all related to Max Anderson? Did you all write some of the letters of support for Max Anderson? You all in cahoots? You all know something about the storage unit being looted a couple weeks ago? Let's get them letters. Let's get the voir dire. Drop Gus T an email if you need any information, if you're confused, any of the email addresses, feel free. I will catch up and respond to all of that pronto. Man, there's been so much going on with this case and other requests, white people concealing lots of information, then prepping for tomorrow's podcast. Wow, it's been a very busy time, summer of 2026, but not forgotten. Sade C. Robinson. More to come. I'll give updates as we proceed. Hopefully we'll start to make some progress and get some of these records. Again, thanks everyone for sending out an email. Need everybody. So if you didn't send that email out last week, we're lazy, too busy watching TV, summertime cookouts, going to the beach, you have more time. You just need one email. Is it asking too much to send one email for Sade? Maybe 3 or 4 emails for Sade? Because once you send one, you can forward it again. That's not that difficult, say. Much obliged. Let's stay on their hind parts in Milwaukee. The reports that we heard, they started off, they were talking about the end of the smartphones. Now we're going to have all of these devices and the glasses that have the cameras on them, and people already got the watches and everything, so everything will just be already connected and listening in to every conversation that you have, and apparently recording it all and taking live time video stream of every time you go to the bathroom or take a shower and all the rest of it. What is all of this going to help us produce justice? I guess I could see the glasses, if they got a camera. Now if you go out and you get stopped by enforcement officers or you're at work, hey, now you got everything recorded, I guess. But I mean, do we really need all of this? That would for sure, all of that would be no. When your children see all of this, because I'm sure they're going to do a masterful marketing campaign directed at younger folks. Oh, you got to get these glasses, and Christmas is closing in too, see? Oh, we got to get these glasses, and oh, we got to get none of that. None of that. Particularly, that's where, if you have young people, you have got to talk to them. All of the, you probably can't even do all, but at least try to articulate some of the dangers with all of this technology and people having access to these cameras that you don't even know about, and particularly for younger people. What they say, wait as long as possible. We were talking about waiting as long as possible with the smartphone. We weren't even in the context of, oh, now we got the smart glasses and all the red light. Whoa. For non-white, we definitely do not need all of that. Again, I say, go and talk to parents. Go and talk to black parents. Hey, even go talk to some of the white parents. What has your experience been with your child or children and the phones? When did you allow your child to get a phone? 1? Oh, okay. What's that experience been? Any problems? If you had to do it over again, would you do the same thing? See and look at what the differences are. Some of the parents that you talk to say, oh, yeah, we got our child an iPhone when they were 1 year old. Okay. Talk to some of the people. We waited and didn't let our child get an iPhone until they were 13. Okay. What are some of the differences that you see in behavior? You know, especially if you talk to a number of parents. Do some investigating. See what you find. But I would wait as long as it would nil on all of that wearable and technology and all of that, not helping out white people. And connecting that even to those so-called flock cameras. Now, we've heard a lot of reports out of the Wisconsin area, I think one other region where they were talking about, because in Wisconsin, in Milwaukee specifically, they had one officer, he got criminally charged for using the cameras to do the same sort of misconduct, tracking females and where you at and where you driving and all the rest of it. And then the officer who was supposed to be investigating the first officer who was illegally using the flock cameras, he was doing the same thing. And so he got criminally charged and all that. Like, come on. Now they moved it out to California. And they said they had a whole group of residents who were upset about all of this and said, we don't want all this technology here. And even part of the justification that they used, they said, you got these cameras concentrated in the areas where the so-called Hispanic people live. Now, I don't know what because they got Hispanic, white, and all that. That is not a racial classification, but I'm not surprised. In fact, I would be surprised if they piled these cameras up, these license plate readers and all the rest of it, if they piled them up in areas where a lot of white people live. I would expect they're going to put all these cameras in the places where the dark people, the non-white people, they live. We're going to make sure that we get their faces and their vehicles and registration and all that in the system. So we have any crime, that's where we're going to start looking at. That's what I would expect, not some sort of, you know, this is a humanitarian effort and we just want to keep everybody safe and the cameras are going to be equally dispersed throughout Santa Mesa or throughout whatever region. That is not what I would expect at all. I don't know what the group looked like because that was audio, but I know when I was in Wisconsin and the people came out to the public meetings to talk about they did not support all this technology and the facial recognition cameras and the license plate readers and all of that, they were mostly white. Now, I don't know if that's non-white people just got other more pressing issues or what have you, but at least my experience, it didn't seem like there were as many non-white people who grasped, like, with all of the informants and surveillance and all the rest of it, like, wow, this is another layer of white people have all kinds of means of making sure there are not going to be any secrets on the plantation. And this was in the midst of the Sade C. Robinson trial. They were using all kinds of cameras. That was a big chunk of the trial, was just them, all the camera footage and the license plate readers and where they pick old Max up when he was driving here and driving there and all the rest of it. So they said, hey, this is exactly why we need this technology. Cases like this helped us get old Max convicted. Let's see, the report about Utah and the direct order to exterminate non-white people, so-called natives, in the area known as Utah. And they said that this year, as opposed to just celebrating the origins of the so-called state, that they were going to look at some of the darker pioneer history, that old tacky racist phrasing. No, and it's so stale. Nobody has a thesaurus. You don't have a more creative way of introducing a segment. Every time we go to talk about racism and the history of white people practice, oh, the dark history of slavery, oh, the dark history of Jim Crow, oh, the dark history of Utah. Like, come on, y'all don't have a better way. And if you're talking about the conduct of white people, the white history of Utah, or, hey, we don't want to do that. The racist history of Utah. How about that one? There's really, we don't. Wokish. That's wokish. They talked about the racist history of Utah with the Mormons and all of that. I mean, woo, the racist. It even reminded me of our white female guest we had on. We were talking about the history of East New York, and they were talking about Mitt Romney's father. And she said that Mitt Romney was a part of a racist organization, and she was talking about the Nixon administration. That's what she meant as very racist. And I said, oh man, I thought you meant the Mormon Church when you said racist organization. Oh yeah, that would count. That would also count. Yes, that would count too. I said, so Mitt Romney's father, he was a part of two very racist organizations, and she was trying to say that the elder Romney was not racist. It's not all white peoples is racist. Any hoodles, but out in Utah, where they said that they talked to all these white people, because they don't have that many dark people out in Utah. They talked to all these white people, and they said, oh man, I never heard about all this dark history and them ordering some, terminate and exterminate all these. I never heard about all that. All of that, in my view, reifies, amplifies the lie that white people are ignorant about racism. Now, whether or not they heard about this specific incident of white supremacy racism from what I think they said about 200 years ago, that is not the point. They know about white supremacy racism. I am sure. They didn't even say, oh, I never heard about no racism. They just said, I didn't hear about this specific incident of it. You don't have to hear about every single act of racism that ever happened to practice racism if you're a white person. In fact, you don't even have to know half of them. I know I'm white. I know how to pick out non-white people. I can rock and roll. And they do. Especially in Utah. They ain't even got no non-white people. We got to call them alone. That's about the size of it, ain't it? We got to call them alone. We got to call them alone. We got to call them alone. Let's see. They, in Germany, after they had the so-called machete attack, Islamic terrorists with the Pride Parade as well, reminded me so much of Anders Breivik. Now, he was out in Norway, but just all of it, and saying that, we're under threat of Sharia law and all this multiculturalism and these Muslims coming here and messing up our Western white way of life, and something must be done about this, and we've been too lax in allowing all of this with the immigration and all of these documents. It reminded me very much of Anders Breivik. Not German, but still. I'll be very eager to kind of see how things develop in that part of the world. They are more, Dr. Welsing might have said, like, wow, that's how you end up with a type of Adolf Hitler type person who says some charismatic person who says we need to rally white people to defend white people from these sorts of attacks from non-white savages who don't respect our white authority. We've allowed too many of these Mongols in the borders anyway. That type of a thing. See how they respond. And particularly if they have the same sort of concerns about white genetic annihilation. Might be something to pay attention to. And the same sort of concerns here with, they were talking about the ICE agents being recorded using all of these racist slurs. And that's one that I point at. You can't come back and tell me, the white people in Utah, that they're ignorant. And I never heard about all this, and I didn't know nothing about them saying go out and kill all of the black people. That's crazy. I just never heard of all of that, and I could never even imagine such a thing. Well, wait a minute. The ICE people are going around, and they're doing the exact same thing. Y'all got it recorded, and they don't sound ignorant. In fact, they have a whole lexicon that they have created around practicing racism. I'd never even heard that. I needed an interpreter to even figure out what are they even saying. Because they started, before they even got to some of the words they made up, even the words that I knew. He was wet. I said, what is that? He was wet? He was in the river? Oh, he's wet back. Okay, I suspect some of them, hey, it's ubiquitous now. You might have the new glasses on and the watch and everything else, and they got the body cameras and all the rest of it. So, hey, something might be recording us, so we can't just say Man, we rounded up them old wetbacks over and we gonna send them again. But they didn't even get that far from it. They didn't say W's or nothing like that. I've even heard creative with that one. I've heard H2O. They didn't even do that. They just said, I got one of them old wets. Or is it he was wet? Yeah, that one, he was wet. He was wet. He was wet. That ain't even that creative, right? They didn't even put that much effort into that one into trying to deceive anybody. Like, And I think I heard some females in there too. I could be wrong. It was just audio. You never know because you got the trans and all that. And so you being heteronormative, Gusty. You don't know. You're absolutely right. I don't know, but it did sound like it was not just the man in that recording about the ICE agents and the racist slurs. Now, they continued from wet. They said, hey, they were celebrating. They said, I got a tunk. I got a tunk. I said, ooh, I don't know what tunk, what is tunk? They said, tunk, that's the sound when I grab my nigger knocker, my flashlight. That's the sound when I grab my flashlight and I say, look here, Gomez, don't set your hind parts down. Tunk. That's the sound when I crack my flashlight across their skull. What? What now? Really? I can't say that I'm shocked because Norm Stamper did say you grab your nigger knocker and you go in there and you grab the biggest, darkest nigger you can find, you crack him across it. He just didn't have the tongue, but he said the exact same thing. You brag and celebrate that I grabbed Leroy and I cracked him and I cracked him upside. Hey, and I whispered it. He said, remember he told you that? I whispered it. Said, you're gonna die, asshole. And they would go back and celebrate. Remember he said that? It's exactly the same. They just don't have the nigger knocker. They got, don't. I got one. I cracked it. Well, you know, don't. Even that the sadomasochism of that. We enjoy practicing racism. Can you imagine? I enjoy the sound of my flashlight crashing off the skull of non-white people. That is music. That's what Fuller said. That's exactly what Fuller said. That is music to me. I enjoy that. My spirit sings. When I got it. I was waiting on that. I was waiting on that one. I was waiting on that. You heard it. And they said some of the folks that she put the funk on, he was a U.S. citizen. He wasn't even one of them old raping border hoppers that we need to send him back over there to Tijuana. That wasn't even, nope. Gomez actually born here. He's supposed to, I don't think we're supposed to funk. It don't even really matter, see? Same thing, a nigger is a nigger. It don't even really matter. I enjoy harming them. That's what I've said about those racist jokes. That's about what the size of all of that was. I enjoy. I'm not ignorant. We're not ignorant. We're not stupid. This is not, we need more training with the ICE officers, you know. So, we ain't supposed to call them wet. We ain't supposed to, I didn't know that. We ain't supposed to crack them across the, so we ain't supposed to do the thunk. We ain't supposed to, okay. I didn't know. That's not what, in fact, you do know, because that's why you got all these little codes. They would just say, here's a whole bunch of wetbacks, and I cracked him, I cracked his head, I took my flag, I said, shut up, go man, cow, I cracked him. They would just say it that way. They didn't do it. You do know. You enjoy, males, white males, and white females, we enjoy practicing racism. That's the only conclusion that you can come to. Logical, in my opinion. And especially when you keep hearing that over and over and over, the same behavior, like, they enjoy this. Now, Abner Loima, I sodomize you with the plunger, and then I brag and I run through the police department and hold up the plunger like a trophy. They had the report They said that they were looking specific. Oh, within that, before I move on, they said within that one that the racist ICE agents, they looked to do the thunk on the working class Latino. Now, again, Latino, Hispanic, these are not racial classifications, but what does working class mean? That mean, so if you see like Lupita Nyong'o, she was born in Mexico, she got to be Latino, right? Is Cameron Diaz, you see her, and they, or them, and they got, I don't know, greasy overalls on. Maybe they were doing a film that day and they were going to play mechanics. And so they got the greasy overalls. Are they working class? I think that might be in the word guide for not used. I don't even know what that means. They got the section on Daniel Erving. They say he one of them pretend black people born in Kenya, maybe Obama's cousin, nephew, something of that nature. They say they shipping him back. He played in the NFL and got all that brain damage. I remember that report they said where if you play one NFL game, not one NFL year, not one NFL season, not one NFL month, if you play one NFL football game, you are 4 times more likely than the general non-football playing population to die from some sort of neurological disorder. I think Daniel Erving, I think he played for, I think they said he played for about a decade, and he got concerns about mental health troubles. As opposed to, oh, Brother Erving, go hang out. You done made us some money and put your body on the line. We want you to, we want you to stay at Indiana. You know about Jim Jones? Well, you go on here and massage your brain computer, and we're going to teach you about Jim Jones, because we got a long history in Indiana. You should know some of this. Maybe you go back and tell some of your folks in Kenya, be careful. You see any of these old white people, they come talking about they are socialists. I learned a few things while I was in Indiana. I didn't just play football for the Colts. They didn't do all that. They said, oh, no. Beat it. So Jim Jones went to Guyana. Maybe you go to Guyana. You ain't got to go to Guyana, but you're going to get up out of Indiana. Beat it. I got brain dead. Beat it. Like, dang, I don't get no better. Man, you going to send me that and then send me back to Kenya. My brain don't even work. And now I get over there. How do I even explain to them? I got the brain damage from the, what? What? What do you mean you got the CT and you have to explain all this and they don't even have no tackle football? They're trying to explain all this. My brain doesn't even work right. I can't even... That would be another one why let the tackle football go. You go over there and try and tell them you got brain damage from the football and they think you're talking about soccer. Jesus Christ. The... report on the Stuyvesant High School in Manhattan, New York City, where they brought in 3 black students, 1, 2, 3, for their 9th grade class. Now, they did include, although this is the lowest number of black students that they've enrolled in 12 years, it's not like they have a history of bringing in, thousands of black people and, come on in, we're going to get everybody all educated and everything. Long history of there being very few black people at the prestigious schools in the New York City area, which they emphasize heavily in the report. I thought importantly, they emphasized the overrepresentation of so-called Asian students, even the overrepresentation of white students, because they said about 17% of the students are classified as white, even though they only make up 16% of the student population. And my suspicion would be that their percentage of the population will probably be dropping, but they'll still make up about 17% of the, even like, how is that? Like, if it's only 16% of the population, but there's 17%? Anyway, and then it's less than 1% of the students are classified as black. They spent a lot of time saying that, many people, they have known that this is the case for some years, and that it seems to be tied to the test scores for how they admit students. And I guess suggesting the same thing that John B. Watson and many others have said for years, the bell curve and all the rest of it, that black people are ignorant. And all the tests that we've ever done have shown this, phrenology and all the rest of it. They got tiny pecan-sized brains and tiny pecan-sized skulls, and they're just not as intelligent as white people. I do remember Dr. Umar Johnson, one of his earlier visits on the cows, him talking about that there are some studies that as black people, non-white people begin to decrease the disparity in these test scores, white people then go and change the tests again. Now, they talked about all of the money that you can invest in taking this test and some of the prep courses that are $5,000 and all the rest of it. I think they also have a lot of studies that have shown that frequently these tests, the greatest correlation is not with intelligence, but with how much money your parents have that they can invest in. They can go get you all of these classes, or Varsity Blues, they can go and pay a white person to cheat and get someone to take this test for you, or pay the correct white people so that the score doesn't even matter and you still get admitted. That's meritocracy, so-called fair. Anyway, I did think it was important within all of that they said that some of the parents, or black parents specifically, that some of them, they were less informed about all this information. They didn't know about the test and all the prep and what have you. I'm not surprised about that, especially in the context of white supremacy, racism, everything that white people have done deliberately to deny constructive information to black people, specifically to even deny black people the ability to read. I can certainly believe that there would be black people who are underinformed about this entire process for their children. Then I would also believe that there are parents who are informed, but because of the information that they have, they do not want their child, their black child, to be one of those three. I totally get that. Like, man, this is my daughter, she's 14, and I know every year they said it comes out that, okay, starting in high school, they bring in about 2 Negroes every year. Okay, so do I want to send my child off to this school? They have 2 black people. I guess they have a whole lot of Asian students and overrepresentation of white students, but no black students practically. Do I want to send my child off to this environment? Who knows what the staff, in terms of how many black staff do they have at this school? Are they going to see any black staff at this school? Does this sound like an environment where my child is going to thrive, enjoy their time there? Yes, every school environment is going to be within a system of racism, white supremacy, but I mean, dang, 3 black children? Not that, black and I'm proud, all that, but just, wow. Does that sound like an environment that's going to be conducive to my black offspring being their best academically? I'd even have to ask, let's go look at this school. Does this look like an environment where you want to be? I could imagine a lot of black children, boys and girls at 14, looking at all that and saying, I'm good. You'll get into a good college, man, the students here, oh my goodness, their SAT scores are so much higher, and they get into the best schools, Harvard, Yale, Cornell, and Stanford. You could be Kamala Harris, blah, blah, blah. I'm good. I could easily see that. Parents, students. They said that a number, with the school situation, they said a number of the so-called Asian parents and students, they did not want to change the test scores because they felt that they were granted, where they gained their slots at the school based on merit and hard work and all the rest of it. I'm not saying that they didn't work hard, but ooh-wee. There is a reason. System of white supremacy, how Dr. Welsing said eloquently, black get back, yellow mellow. I suspect if you go look at that 68%, I suspect a lot of those folks have one white parent. I suspect you don't have a lot of darker Asian people like the Cambodians, Laotians, darker complexion. I suspect that is not the student population at Stuyvesant High School. I could be in error. But they said they didn't want to change things. I've seen that exact same dynamic with what they call affirmative action, where they'll put whole documentaries out, and they'll make sure to do racial showcasing and get lots of non-white people, so-called Asian. So, we work hard, and so-called Tiger Mom, and we don't do all the hip-hopping and nonsense and sagging pants like them Negroes. And we put our children and blah, 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 and all that. Just having the resources, not being classified as black and subject to the white supremacy racism and the way that racists terrorize black people, it might be as simple as, we do have the, what they call it, excess income, disposable income, that is not going to cripple us to invest $5,000 to have our child in some of these prep courses, maybe 2 or 3 times. You're classified as black, all that double whammy white supremacy racism, maybe you do not have a spare $5,000 to have your child in that prep course. And in fact, if you're classified as black, maybe you don't even find out about that information. I would say people that are non-white, non-black, white people allow them better access to white people, so you might have better information. Those 2 things alone might make an astronomical difference. I would say do make an astronomical difference. Let's see. The section on home prices. They said, number one of the people that they talked to, Jay, he was the first male that they spoke to, Jay Thompson. He was the first male that they spoke to. He's the one, they said that his mom owned a property. His mom, black female. Make sure Jay Washington, 38. His mom, she bought the house, got lucky, it went up in value, great, blah, blah, blah. So Jay, privileged black male, said he went to one of those for-profit colleges. I was reminded, President Trump and all that. Anyway, but he went to one of those for-profit colleges, said he got one of them old worthless degrees in a host of scattered activities, and has spent a good chunk of what should be his prime earning years as a privileged black male, unemployed, underemployed. And they do have a picture, I'm just mentioning it because they got a picture of old privileged black male Jay Washington. He does look overweight, I might even say obese, if we're saying obese is 40 pounds above what should be about your healthy body weight. I would submit he might even look like he's obese, more than 40 pounds above his healthy body weight. Anyway, old Jay, privileged, unemployed, underemployed, said, man, I sure would like to get me a old house. And man, it made things up. Matter of fact, after all the weight gain and stress and turmoil and worthless degrees, said old privileged Jay, he went back to school and got another degree, got his job and saving up, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to get that house or not. Maybe I wait long enough, and after mom transition, she'll leave me that when I get that from mom. Maybe I can hold on and just take care of myself, and that'll be my plan. He getting kind of old because he's close to 40, so I mean, that's black male privilege with old Jay Washington, 38, with 2 degrees. I said, man, he don't even fit the profile for your lazy black male because he went and got 2 worthless degrees, and he's still underemployed. Dang. That's black male privilege? Anyway, we put old Jay on the back burner. In that piece, they said that the middle class folks catching a hard time and trying to get housing. Again, all that working class, middle class, that's in the word glad. Mr. Fuller has told us, stop using all these goofy, confusing terms. They said there was discord between the races because now you got all these haves who have a place to sleep, a house, and all the have-nots who do not have housing have discord between the races because of, discord between the classes. That's what they said. I said, what? You don't have so-called discord between non-white people and white people around this issue? It's between the so-called classes? All the history of redlining and deliberately keeping black people, all black people, whether they got a few nickels or not, from getting a house. There's no history of keeping poor white people from getting housing. There's deliberate long history in every state of people classified as white keeping all black people from getting quality housing. Nah, we don't bring that up. It's just a class issue. In the segment, so they moved from Jay, where they were talking about the houses. So they privileged black male Jay. They moved and they spoke with a white family, and they don't have pictures for all these folks, but I looked. They're in Virginia, the Gilroys. Now, I went to confirm Brittany Gilroy, white, Richmond, Virginia, Confederacy. They said that they, saved up and did what they had to do so that they could get a house. If they had to look and invest and get beans and rice and do whatever they had to do, they had to make it work to get that house. And they talked to some of the other white people, and they were able to pitch in and do this. And they even said that, in fact, they said that they were able to struggle and fight and pitch in and get a house. And they had even some of their other family members pitch in to help them get housing. That right there is a massive component of white supremacy racism, where white people, even poor white people, they have way better access to the same thing I said before, just other white people. I might be poor. That doesn't mean that I don't have access to other white people who are not poor, who can help me get a house. And this whole book, like plural, many books about just that alone in terms of economics, where people who are white and are poor, they still have way better health outcomes, way better economic outcomes, because they might be poor, but that doesn't mean that their parents are. That doesn't mean that all of their siblings are. That doesn't even mean that they have other white people that they know, white friends and all the rest of it, who can help them get a car, help them get a house, help them get a job, all of the above. Where non-white people, their relatives and friends just don't have resources like that. Widespread in the system already, but you heard in that report right there, those white people saying, hey, we had other friends and relatives. They were able to help us get this house, cover the down payment, or do the fixing up if we go and get. And even in that report for racism, because some of those white people said we took advantage of the foreclosure 2008, 2009 Great Recession. It was a whole lot with that D word, disproportionately. It was a whole lot of black people, non-white people, who lost their houses. So with these fixer-uppers, foreclosures that they wouldn't swoop in on, were they vulturing formerly black-owned property? I would suspect likely, based on the evidence. But if they get some of these fixer-uppers, the white buyers, they can get white family to go help them get a new freezer, new refrigerator, take all that carpeting out, remodel it. So, oh man, these niggas were living bad. Now we fixed it up, got this thing looking right, put a new staircase and all that. System of white supremacy, Voltron effect, if you will. The segment on the Mucky duck. I'm not blaming Jeremy Dillingham, privileged black male, 26 years old. Again, Dr. Cambon, and even confirmed in more recent reports, the human brain computer does not really begin maturing until early 30s. So Mr. Dillingham, although not a child, his brain computer not mature, got years before his brain computer is mature. But I did also, as Dr. Cambon has instructed us, hey, do not be out late at night. He said for years, nothing constructive when you are out 11:30, midnight, 1 o'clock, 2, 3, 4. They generally do not have surprise. We're giving away mint signed first edition printings of the ISIS papers valued at $500. You had to be out here at 2 o'clock in the morning. If you can answer one question about Dr. Welsing, we'll give you a free set. That generally doesn't happen. 2 o'clock in the morning. They generally do not have seminars at the bar. This is how to reduce your mortgage, get that sucker paid off, and have it. They generally do not have those sort of meetings and seminars at 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning. It's nothing happening constructive. Go to bed. At minimum, stay in the house at your residence. Now, Jeremy Dillingham, 26-year-old privileged black male, where is he at 1:30 a.m.? He is at the Mucky Duck. Gus T does not recommend being at the Mucky Duck at 1:30 p.m., 8 a.m., 12 p.m., 4 p.m., 6 p.m. I humbly submit, ain't nothing constructive going on at the Mucky Duck at no time, much less 1:30 a.m. What happened at the Mucky Duck at 1:30 a.m.? Caden Douglas, race soldier, came in looking for a fight. How old is Caden Douglas, by the way? 22. That would be one of them white people that President Obama said, hey, these white people changed. This is a different set of white people. You know? These are young white people. They don't behave like their parents. I know we got old Donald Trump and old Donald Sterling and all these old decrepit geriatric racists. It's a new day. These white people, they listen to Kendrick Lamar. They grew up listening to Beyonce. They're not racist. Contraire, mon frere. Old Caden Douglas, 22. I'm at the Mucky Duck at 1:30 in the morning. They even got some of the bar folks say, hey, man, the late Jeremy Dillingham, privileged black male, he was easygoing, relaxed, calm, laid back, nice fella. Caden. What is that about Caden? Mr. Fuller, even he said, that is the system of white supremacy racism. I am looking, what'd you say? Punk. I'm at the Mucky Duck. I'm looking to do the punk. I'm gonna crack you across your skull. Why? I was bored. They had nothing to do at the Mucky Duck. What else you do at the Mucky Duck? Pool table broken? They ain't got no new video games? I'm gonna crack you across your skull. You want something? I got something for you. That's what he said. I got something for you. I got something for you. I got some. All of that right there. That would be another submission. You need another one? I said, people classified as black, victims of white supremacy, we all flunk. Gus T, all of us. We get F's in racism, white supremacy. I said, Nolan Wells. Tragically. You can't tell me you get any grade other than an F. What's your understanding of racism, white supremacy based on your behavior? You go to an island in Mississippi with a gang of whites where you're the only black person and you're going to have a drinking contest. You go to the Mucky Duck at 1:30 a.m. I almost feel like I could fade out right there. These are F's, right? These are F's. You go in your exam, what's your understanding of racism, white supremacy? These are not C's. These are not D's. These are F's. Even, hey, F for fatality. These are F's, but that last one, I'm not going to fade that one out at, we were at the Mucky Duck at 1:30 a.m., which, hey, that's enough for an F right there. We're going to continue that one. I was at the Mucky Duck at 1:30 a.m. and a race soldier came in and said, oh, you want some static? You want some trouble? I got some trouble. I got some trouble. I got something for you. I got something for you. What did I do? Fuller has told us anytime you you are in a situation like this out in public, hey, unless I am ready to kill everybody here, if need be, everybody, this is going to be their last day at the Mucky Duck. And in fact, it might be my last day at the Mucky Duck. This is going to be the last stand of the Mucky Duck. If you did not plan for that to take place, hey, it's been real. I'm going to pay my tab. Deuces. It's almost 2 a.m. Wow. I have got to get out of here. Deuces. Caden Doug. Oh, you cowardly? You cowardly? I thought you were going to do something. You yeller? You ain't going to come on? Because I got something. Come on over here. Come on over here. You nigger? Come on over here. I got something. Scared. Ain't nothing to say. Ain't no response. Ain't no nothing. If anything, that's a reminder. What was I thinking? It's 1:30. What am I doing at the Mucky Duck at 1:30? Really? What am I doing at the Mucky Duck? Good question. Good question. Good question. These sort of situations happen all the time. And again, a lot of this is because we do not understand white supremacy racism. We don't understand what it means to be white. White people go, and that's what I said, Chud the Builder. Wasn't he doing the same thing? He was going out putting it on YouTube and such, though. Going out, hey, nigga, you want to start something? Want to do something? Want to do something? I got something. He was doing the exact same thing. The black person would get upset. What you call me? You don't talk to me that way. I don't know. And then he pull out his pistol. Pow! He shot somebody on video, too. This fella, I don't think he shot him over. I don't think he was, like, live streaming this. But he did shoot Mr. Dillingham and killed him. Now, Mr. Douglas, 22-year-old white race soldier, he was convicted. He was found guilty this week. I don't know that that brings Mr. Dillingham back. I don't know that that makes his family feel any better about all of this. Maybe I guess they could say small J justice. Maybe. If they convict or if they sentence Mr. Douglas, I think they said he could get 46 years if he gets convicted, which he did. So we'll have to see what the sentence is. But even if they sentence him to life in prison, like, we are missing Jeremy Dillingham forever, and he was only 26. His life just started, man. He was only 26. That would be another one I would share, especially young people, because they like to go out and do all that stuff. Hey, man, anybody says your life could be over, and that one, you can put that with Carmelo Anthony. So you got it both ways. Life is over with both ways. You kill a white person and you get a sentence of 40 years, approximately. I forgot exactly the number for Carmelo Anthony, but I know he's going to be locked for a long time. So you got that one. They say something to you and you say, what? What? I got something for you too, Whitey. Ah! Well, you're going to have to answer to white people for what you did. You got to be prepared for that. Or I got something for you, and you go over and get in all that, and he had a little something more for me than I bargained for, which is generally the case with a racist man, racist woman, racist child. Even, I would say, Carmelo Anthony. White people collectively had a little bit more than he bargained for. I don't think he bargained for 40 years. I don't think he bargained for all that. I could be wrong. I don't think Jeremy Dillingham, I don't think he bargained my last night on earth is going to be at the Mucky Duck. I don't think he had that in the plans, but that happens to a whole lot of us. I cannot emphasize enough. System of white supremacy racism. You don't know if that person is armed or not. That's for white people. non-white people, you have no idea. The bite of Seattle, man, you have no idea how many people are packing around me before I get upset and they done challenged me and let's get down and all the rest of it. Wait a minute. Do they have a Glock? It's the same thing. Mr. Fuller, he just, hey, are you ready to kill everybody here? If the answer is no, we are trying to get out of here. If you didn't leave your residence with a plan, I left my house to have Mortal Kombat at the Mucky Duck at 1 o'clock in the morning. If that was not your plan, hey, anything, even when it gets to the point, because they said that the bartender, he had to kick that old race soldier out because he was being disruptive. He wasn't being like Mr. Dillingham. They said he was smooth, calm, laid back, old privileged black male. Whoopee. They said the race soldier, he was being disruptive and volatile. We had to kick him out. Even that, if you are out at a facility, I wouldn't care if it's a restaurant, anything, and you see other patrons, they're causing that much of a disturbance where they got to be booted out. What's going on? And is he all right? Are they going to have to call it? Hey, it is time to go. Bite of Seattle. Bite of Seattle. Talked about that on neutralizing workplace racism, but man, got 3 people dead and shot a toddler. All of that over, and kind of over the same thing. What did you say to me? Did you look in? What did you? I didn't even say. Try to avoid them events where it's going to be a whole lot of people. And if I've said this for a long time, if you gotta go, hey, you're with a group or with yourself, in advance, you already, now, if anything happens, exits are here. The plan is we will meet here, we will get out of here. Everybody has texts and all that number, so, you know, if we're not directly around each other, we can communicate, we'll rendezvous, bam. If you're by yourself, even easier. Identify all the emergency exits and all of this so you know how to get out of here. But I cannot stress enough, all that being out, I know it's summertime, but I guess summer's about over. It's August now, so we're about to go back to school. But or even with that, end of summer, so you want to go out with a bang. Let's go out safely. We had enough bangs for the summer. Let's go out safely, in one piece. Fuller say no parties for a reason. I say, let's skip the bar. How about that? Let's skip the bar, the pub, because I think Mucky Duck is a pub. Let's skip the tavern, all of that. All of that. It is one of the worst combinations in the known universe. White people, alcohol. Hey, if Sade Robinson had the no pub policy, she might still be with us. Nolan Wells, I do not do no mad dog with racial. He might still be with us. No parties, no pubs. White people and alcohol is, I mean, you are taking your life in your hands. We already have enough problems. We already have enough hazards with the system of white supremacy racism. A white person who is under the influence, anyway, I'll just say again, if you have children, they should not be ignorant about Nolan Wells, Daniel Erving, Sade Robinson, Lonzo Brooks. Hey, you can even put Mr. Dillingham in there. He was 26, but I mean, you can add him in there too. Pretty young. Yes, yes. Last thing I'll say before wrapping it up, that case with Ivy Kelly, privileged black male, all that time time. That's basically 3 decades he's been locked up, greater confinement, and deciding to stay in greater confinement until he is exonerated. And I've heard a lot of cases like that where white people will say, look here, Ivy, just say you did it and we'll let you out. Wait a minute. Why would you let me out if I did it? Well, just say you did it and we'll let you out. Like, man, come on. Well, if you ain't gonna say you did, well, you just gonna keep your own in there if you're gonna be obstinate about this thing. John Burge. Now, they didn't mention his name, and I think John Burge had officially been fired by the time we get to this case in 1999, but he had worked there so long and had so much influence. Everything about that case, the use of snitches to come in and some of the witnesses getting federal money to come in and provide testimony that seems like it might be false, to say that he did all this, it sounds exactly like John Burge minus the genital mutilation. Who knows? Maybe it happened, maybe it didn't, because Burge wasn't the only one engaged in that misbehavior. But the overall, all these black privileged black dudes getting locked up and serving all these decades for crimes they did not commit, and all the lying to keep them in prison for all of that time. I've heard all of that before, even down to the Ivy Kelly being sent 5 hours south of Chicago. That is standard operating procedure. Not only he's in greater confinement while his mother dies and he doesn't know, oh, you can't go to the funeral, you should have behaved yourself. But we're going to isolate you totally. 5 hours. So his mom had cancer before she passed away. You think you get cancer, you think you can hold up for a 5-hour drive? I think that's one way, the way they were describing it. 5 hours one way, so that's 10-hour round-trip drive to go see your no-count criminal son. Standard operating procedure. We're going to isolate you so that nobody knows what we done to you. Hopefully everybody in the world will forget about your no-count criminal self. Even if you didn't do this, so what? Nobody will be missed. Even said, in fact, he said, I'm estranged from my children. No one who be missed. That's some black male privilege. And we had bunches of it. We had Jay, I can't get no job. I can't get no house. I'm 40 pounds overweight. I got Ivy Kelly. I can't get no job. I can't even get out of greater confinement. I can't even go to my mom's funeral. And my children think I'm a deadbeat convict. And then you can stack Nolan Wells and Daniel Erving and Jeremy Dillingham on that one. Black male privilege. Were there any goodies for black males? Did we get any goodies for black males? Let me just make sure I didn't miss out. Did we get the black males? They got to go to Stuyvesant High School, and the black males got. They got thunked, I guess, maybe, or maybe that wasn't the black males. I guess that was the Latino males got the thunk, and then I didn't see a whole lot of black male privilege, but hey, we'll try again, I guess, for next week. If anybody found any black male privilege, things to celebrate this year week for the black dudes, let us know. But it seemed like we kind of took a tough one this week. I guess, if anything, don't drink with your white friends. Sobriety would be best as we wrap up the summer of 2026, but definitely do not consume alcoholic beverages with white people. Do not consume alcoholic beverages with white people near bodies of water, pool, lake, beach. Do not visit the bar, tavern, pub. Mucky ducks ain't constructive. I felt like that would go without saying. Mucky ducks ain't constructive. Mucky ducks. Creator, we ask that you help us, remind us, stop saying not all white people are racist. remind us, stop name-calling and cursing people classified as black. Even Ben Crump? Even Ben Crump. Remind us, regardless of how many white people we think are not racist, do not consume alcohol with white people. It has been time. Replace white supremacy with justice immediately. We will be here on Sunday, tomorrow, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. Write those emails for Sade C. Robinson. We need them unsealed, unredacted letters of support for that killing, arsonist, murdering, dismembering Max Anderson. And we need the voir dire. How did we only have 2 black jurors in that trial? Cal signing out. Thanks all for tuning in.
Nigga, you so brainwashed. I'm a victim, brother. You're a victim. I'm a victim of 400 years of conditioning. Shut up. The man has programmed my condition. Even my conditioning has been conditioned.